أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الأخوة والأخوات، قيادات حكومة دولة الإمارات. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. مكلمكم أخوكم عمار المعيني من مكتب التطوير الحكومي والمستقبل. نرحب بكم اليوم معنا في منتدى المستقبل الرقمي الحكومي المستدام، اللي ينظم هذا المنتدى بالشراكة بين هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية ومكتب التطوير الحكومي والمستقبل، واللي راح يناقش أفضل الممارسات الحكومية لتسريع التحول للرقمي المستدام، وأهمية اعتماد سياسات استباقية وتدابير استراتيجية حكومية تضمن الاستدامة في العمليات الحكومية الرقمية. والآن اسمحوا لي أن أدعو معالي عهود بنت خلفان الرومي، وزير الدولة للتطوير الحكومي والمستقبل، رئيسة اللجنة العليا للتحول للرقم الحكومي، لإلقاء كلمتها الافتتاحية. تفضلي معالي الوزيرة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، أخواتي وإخواني الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أرحب بكم وأشكركم على حضوركم منتدى المستقبل الرقمي الحكومي المستدام. وأود أن أشكر شركائنا سعادة الأخ ماجد المسمار وهيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية على رعاية وتنظيم هذا الملتقى الاستباقي الذي يأتي في الوقت المناسب أكثر من أي وقت مضى. الحضور الكريم، نعيش اليوم عصر ثورة تكنولوجية رقمية تشكل فيها التكنولوجيا عصب الحياة وشريان الأنشطة في حياتنا اليومية ونبض الاقتصاد الجديد وثروة المستقبل. اليوم يبلغ عدد المستخدمين على شبكة الإنترنت العالمية 5.3 مليار نسمة رقمية، حيث أصبحت التكنولوجيا الرقمية ضرورة حيوية للمجتمعات والحكومات والاقتصادات، كما أضحت الرقمنة هي المحور الأساسي لعمل جهات أيا كان القطاع الذي تعمل فيه. فحجم الحوسبة الرقمية الذي يتم اليوم تضاعف بمعدل 550% خلال 10 سنوات الماضية، و1.8 تريليون دولار قيمة الفرص العالمية التي يضيفها التحول الرقمي إلى مختلف القطاعات. لكن من المهم أن تكون هذه الثروة الرقمية أيضاً مستدامة بكافة المعايير. فمفهوم الاستدامة يرتبط في أذهاننا دائماً بالبيئة، لكن التحولات والتسارعات العالمية وسعت هذا المفهوم وجعلت من الاستدامة محوراً رئيسياً في كافة القطاعات، ومنها القطاعات الحكومية والاقتصادية والرقمية. ولا أنا أستغرب أن يكون للتحول الرقمي أيضاً نصيب في الانبعاثات. 20% من الانبعاثات الناتجة عن استهلاك الكهرباء ستكون لتشغيل التكنولوجيا التحول الرقمي بحلول عام 2030، و14% من إجمالي انبعاثات الناتجة عن استهلاك الكهرباء ستكون ناتجة عن مراكز البيانات. ولكن أيضاً 20% من إجمالي الانبعاثات يمكن خفضها باستخدام التكنولوجيا الرقمية المستدامة. وهنا نرى العلاقة الوطيدة بين التحول الرقمي والاستدامة. ولا يوجد وقت أفضل من الآن لمناقشة فرص المستقبل التي يوفرها لنا التحول الرقمي المسؤول والمستدام. فقد حددت دولة الإمارات عام 2023 عاماً للاستدامة، وهو كذلك عام استضافة مؤتمر الأمم المتحدة للأطراف المعنية بتغير المناخ كوب 28 الذي يبدأ الأسبوع القادم، ليؤكد التزام دولة الإمارات بمستقبل مستدام. واليوم يمثل ملتقانا اليوم دولة الإمارات بثقلها الرقمي من القطاعين الحكومي والخاص، ويشكل منصة لمشاركة فرص الابتكارات الخضراء والاستدامة الرقمية وكيفية الاستفادة منها. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الحضور الكريم، سنرى في المرحلة القادمة 3 تحولات جديدة ستشكل الجيل القادم من التحول الرقمي في الحكومات. أولاً، البنية التحتية الرقمية المسؤولة والمستدامة. في المرحلة القادمة سنرى نماذج جديدة وأنظمة رقمية جديدة تتطلب سرعة حوسبة أعلى، لذلك سنشهد ظهور جيل جديد من التكنولوجيا الرقمية التي تحرص على الموازنة بين تطبيق معايير الاستدامة وفي نفس الوقت تلبية الطلب المتزايد على الخدمات الرقمية نتيجة تضاعف عدد مستخدمي الإنترنت وارتفاع توقعاتهم الرقمية وزيادة حركة الإنترنت بما يزيد عن 20 ضعفاً. طبعاً البنية التحتية الرقمية المستدامة ستشكل محور رئيسي أيضاً لضمان الاستخدام الفعال وضمان الاستدامة، كما ستكون المعيار المهم الذي يضمن الاستخدام المستدام للموارد الرقمية والحد من انبعاثات الكربون. حالياً تتسابق الشركات العالمية في القطاع الخاص لتطبيق الاستدامة في البنية التحتية لتكنولوجيا المعلومات لسببين. أول سبب إدراكها أن صناعة التكنولوجيا الرقمية مسؤولة عن 2% من انبعاثات غازات الاحتباس الحراري العالمية، وهذا يعادل تقريباً الانبعاثات التي تنتجها صناعة الطيران. وثاني سبب أن الاستدامة أصبحت علامة جودة تحرك قرارات أفضلية اختيار التكنولوجيا سواء في القطاعين الحكومي أو الخاص. ثانياً العمليات المستدامة. ستكون الابتكارات الرقمية المستدامة هي مقياس التفوق في الجيل الجديد من التحول الرقمي وفي إدارة العمليات الحكومية أيضاً، بغض النظر عن نوع الأدوات التكنولوجية المتقدمة التي يتم توظيفها لخدمة الاستدامة في الابتكار الرقمي. كما سنشهد ظهور نماذج جديدة للعمليات الرقمية الخضراء سيكون لها دور في تشكيل المستقبل الرقمي وتحسين البرمجيات وكفاءة الأجهزة واستخدام مصادر الطاقة المستدامة. كما ستبرز مستقبلاً سياسات رقمية جديدة توجه العمليات الرقمية المستدامة وتساهم في إدارة الاستهلاك المستدام للطاقة لأغراض العمليات الرقمية، وهذا سيؤدي إلى الحاجة للالتزام بمعايير مستدامة مثل الشراء المسؤول للأجهزة المتقدمة المستدامة والتأكد من أن المواد المستخدمة في صناعتها مصدرها أخلاقي ويمكن إعادة تدوير المخلفات الرقمية أو التخلص منها دون الإضرار بالبيئة. ثالثاً المهارات الرقمية الخضراء. النماذج الجديدة للتحول الرقمي في المستقبل سوف تعتمد على التنمية الرقمية المستدامة للمهارات والقدرات في الحكومة لتمكين الموظفين من التعامل مع المتغيرات التكنولوجية. عند ظهور الإنترنت في الثمانينات ظهرت مهارات الحوسبة بشكلها البدائي اللي كانت تعتبر ضرورية في ذلك الوقت لجميع الموظفين للتحول الرقمي، مثل مهارات استخدام الكمبيوتر والإنترنت والإيميل. ما نحتاج إلى تنميته في المرحلة القادمة هو مهارات رقمية مستدامة، أذكر منها مثلا المهارات الرقمية الخضراء ومهارات التكنولوجيا المستدامة. ونحن في حكومة الإمارات أطلقنا مبادرة جاهز لتعزيز جاهزية المواهب الحكومية بمهارات المستقبل، مع التركيز بشكل خاص على المهارات الرقمية مثل التحول الرقمي، الأمن السيبراني، الذكاء الاصطناعي والبيانات الخضراء. وفي نفس الوقت ركزنا على المهارات الخضراء مثل مهارات الاستدامة في التكنولوجيا الرقمية والاقتصاد الدائري والحياد المناخي وتغير المناخ. منصة جاهز منذ إطلاقها في نوفمبر الماضي قدمت حتى اليوم أكثر من 300 ألف شارة تدريبية لموظفي الحكومة الاتحادية في مجال المهارات الرقمية، وأكثر من 250 ألف شارة تدريبية في مجال المهارات الخضراء. لا بد أن نضع الإنسان ومهاراته في الأولوية، وأن يكون هو مركز الاهتمام، وأن نعمل على تحسين حياة الناس بمهارات وتكنولوجيا جديدة ومستدامة لتحقيق ذلك. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الحضور الكريم، أشكركم مجدداً على مشاركتكم ووجودكم معنا اليوم، ونتطلع للاستماع إلى مقترحاتكم ومساهماتكم القيمة وتعاونكم والعمل معكم كفريق عمل واحد لتحقيق القفزة النوعية المطلوبة في التحول الرقمي المستدام لحكومة دولة الإمارات وفق الرؤية الطموحة لقيادتنا الرشيدة لمستقبل أفضل. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا معالي الوزيرة على هذه الكلمة. والآن اسمحوا لي أن أدعو سعادة المهندس ماجد سلطان المسمار، مدير عام هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية، عضو اللجنة العليا للتحول الرقمي الحكومي، لإلقاء كلمته الافتتاحية. تفضل سعادتك.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي الأخت عهود بنت خلفان الرومي، وزيرة الدولة للتطوير الحكومي والمستقبل، رئيس اللجنة العليا للتحول الرقمي، أصحاب السعادة، السادة الحضور، يسعدني أن أتحدث إليكم في افتتاح هذا المنتدى الذي يأتي قبل أيام من مؤتمر الأطراف في اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية بشأن التغير المناخي كوب 28، وهو الحدث الذي يعكس المكانة الدولية المرموقة لدولة الإمارات، ويقدم نموذجاً عن دور الإمارات وتأثيرها في الساحة العالمية. كما يتزامن المنتدى مع فعاليات المؤتمر العالمي للاتصالات الراديوية WRC 23 الذي ينعقد الآن على أرض الإمارات بمشاركة دول العالم كافة، بهدف صياغة معالم المرحلة القادمة في مجال الاتصالات الراديوية وانعكاساتها على المدن الذكية والتحولات الرقمية المتسارعة التي تترافق مع الثورة الصناعية الرابعة. وكأن هذين الحدثين الكبيرين يتناغمان معا ليقدما للعالم رسالة إماراتية حول العلاقة الوطيدة بين تقنيات الاتصالات والمعلومات من جهة، وبين الاستدامة بأبعادها الإنسانية والحضارية من جهة أخرى. إلى جانب هذه الرسالة ثمة مغزى آخر لهذين الحدثين، وهو يتصل بأحد المحاور الرئيسية لرؤية نحن الإمارات 2031، وأقصد هنا المحور الثالث الذي ينص على مكانة دولة الإمارات كداعم بارز للتعاون الدولي وقوة رئيسية في الدبلوماسية العالمية ودولة رائدة عالميا في الاستدامة البيئية. الحضور الكريم، لقد دخلت البشرية خلال 20 عاما الماضية عصرا رقميا تختلف ملامحه عن أي حقبة تاريخية سابقة، وقد برهنت التطورات العالمية في هذا السياق أن للرقمنة وتقنياتها أثرا مهما في التقليل من البصمة الكربونية والمساعدة في التخفيف من آثار التغير المناخي وإقامة البيئة الملائمة للاقتصاد المستدام. وإذا كان التغير المناخي هو أحد أكبر التحديات التي تواجه البشرية اليوم، فقد أثبتت التقنيات الرقمية أنها يمكن أن تكون جزءاً من الاستراتيجيات العالمية لمواجهة هذا التحدي، فهي قادرة على خفض البصمة الكربونية عبر المساعدة في خلق أسلوب حياة قائم على خفض استهلاك الطاقة، كما في المنازل الذكية والسيارات الكهربائية وغيرها، وكذلك عبر تمكين التواصل والتجارة الرقمية واستخدام القنوات الرقمية للشراء والبيع والتعلم والحصول على الخدمات وغير ذلك من الأنشطة الإنسانية المعاصرة. كما تساهم التكنولوجيا الرقمية في تعزيز الابتكار وريادة الأعمال، الأمر الذي أدى إلى تطورات كبرى في المجالات ذات الصلة كالطاقة المتجددة والزراعة الذكية والأتمتة الصناعية وغيرها. من ناحية أخرى، أسهمت ثورة البيانات في الرصد الاستباقي للكوارث الطبيعية وقياس مستويات التلوث، بما ساهم في اتخاذ القرارات الاستراتيجية التي تخفف من آثار الظواهر المختلفة على صحة وسلامة البشر. لقد كانت دولة الإمارات من رواد العصر الرقمي، حيث دشنت الألفية الثالثة بإطلاق عدة مشاريع استراتيجية كان في طليعتها الدرهم الإلكتروني عام 2001، حيث دشنت الألفية الثالثة بإطلاق عدة مشاريع استراتيجية كان في طليعتها الدرهم الإلكتروني عام 2001، ثم مشاريع الحكومة الرقمية المحلية التي تعمل اليوم في تناغم وتكامل ضمن التحول الرقمي الشامل الذي تتشرف هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية بالإشراف عليه، والذي أفضى إلى ما نحن فيه اليوم من ثلاثية الحكومة الرقمية، المجتمع الرقمي، والاقتصاد الرقمي. لقد حققت مشاريع الحكومة الرقمية في دولة الإمارات إنجازات كبرى على امتداد مسيرتها، لكني أرى أن الإنجاز الأهم خلال السنوات العشر الأخيرة يتمثل في المستوى العالي من التشبيك والترابط الذي أنتج حالة جديدة يمكن تسميتها بالحكومة الرقمية الشاملة والمتكاملة. فبفضل التوجيهات الرشيدة من القيادة أصبح المشهد الرقمي اليوم يتخطى ما هو محلي أو اتحادي، فخدمات مثل الهوية الرقمية ومنصة التحقق الرقمي والرابط الحكومي وغيرها لا يمكن وصفها بأنها خدمات اتحادية أو محلية، بل خدمات وطنية مركزية معيار نجاحها هو المتعامل أينما كان. والشيء نفسه ينطبق على فرق العمل الحكومية في مجال التحول الرقمي، إذ أنها تعمل وفق خطط شمولية تراعي التنسيق وضبط الإيقاع والتوافق التشغيلي بين الجميع اتحاديا ومحليا، وفي مؤسسات القطاع الخاص أيضا. بينما نمضي قدما في تنفيذ توجيهات قيادتنا الرشيدة نحو مجتمع واقتصاد المعرفة الرقمي، فإننا نضع في اعتبارنا أن أهدافنا تنقسم بين ما هو وطني وما هو عالمي وإنساني. فعلى المستوى الوطني نسعى لبناء المنظومة الرقمية المتطورة التي تعزز جودة الحياة وتنافسية الدولة، وعلى المستوى العالمي نبذل كل جهد مستطاع للمشاركة بفعالية في تحقيق أهداف الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة. ولنا بصماتنا الواضحة في العديد من الجهود الدولية التي تهدف لتحقيق الشعار الإنساني النبيل: لن نترك أحدا خلف الركب. ونحن ماضون بإذن الله في هذه المسيرة، نبني على ما حققناه من خبرات متراكمة، ونعزز تعاوننا مع أخواننا في الجهات الحكومية، ونقوي أسس الشراكة الشاملة بين مختلف القطاعات، ونبني كفاءاتنا الوطنية ونزودها بمهارات المستقبل. وبينما نقوم بكل ذلك، فإن أعيننا تبقى مفتوحة على أفضل التجارب العالمية، وحواسنا تبقى يقظة إزاء ما سيأتي به المستقبل من تقنيات ومستجدات تتطلب منا الاستعداد الاستباقي والتحلي الدائم بقيم الريادة والاستدامة وتحدي المستحيل. وفقنا الله معكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أشكر سعادة المهندس ماجد سلطان المسمار، مدير عام هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية، على هذه الكلمة. والآن يسرنا أن نفتتح أولى جلسات هذا المنتدى بجلسة بعنوان التوجهات الناشئة الاستدامة في التحول الرقمي، يقدمها فيل برون، مدير الاستراتيجية في شركة أمازون ويب سيرفيسز. Dear Mr. Phil, good morning, or perhaps good evening, because you are joining us from the US, and this is one of the benefits of digital transformation. You may start your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Phil LeBrun. As you just heard, I'm part of our organization at Amazon Web Services. I spend a lot of time with senior leaders around the world, having been a CIO at McDonald's Corporation many years ago. And our role is to really help organizations accelerate their transformation. So what I want to go through today is just some of the trends we're seeing in the area of both digital transformations as well as in the area of sustainability. One thing I'd say right up front, though, is I do not have a crystal ball. I'm not going to try and predict the future. I'm not going to tell you that quantum computing is the solution. Technology is going to have a profoundly positive impact on our ability both to digitally transform and to become more sustainable. But one of the questions we often struggle with in organizations is, what is digital transformation and what is its connection to sustainability? Well, when I think about digital transformation, I think about being more agile, about minimizing waste, about unleashing the talent we all have in organizations to deliver more value faster at lower risk. These are all the same things we're trying to achieve with becoming more sustainable. So if I look across the world and the many customers we talk to, let me share a few of the trends. Firstly, there's an acknowledgement that complexity is growing in the world. We came out of COVID and people were talking about the new normal, getting back to some status quo. But we've seen many, many disruptions, utility costs, labor shortages, supply chain disruptions, all of these sending a strong message that our ability to continue to be able to adapt to changes in the world around us are going to be important, and no more so than in the area of sustainability. In fact, one quantification of this shows that the rate of disruption in the world is growing 3 times faster now than it was just 5 years ago. So while we all may want for a simpler world, those organizations that accept we're operating in a complex environment are the ones that are going to be successful. But this just isn't just about the world we operate in. It's also about the complexity in our own organizations. Something we can all address. How do we make it simpler in our organizations to get work done, to become more sustainable, to become more agile? And the reality of this is, I take inspiration from one of the organizational theorists from the last century, who talks about that we as leaders and managers have to accept that we work in these complex systems. And if we are going to address digital transformation and sustainability, then we have to experiment, see what works, see what the implications of those experiments are, and then either change direction or scale those ideas rapidly. I'll give you a very simple example. Lots of conversation around the benefit of electrifying cars. It's a direction most countries are moving in. But every simple move brings a ton of complexities with it. The increased emissions in the manufacture of electric cars, the stress on the existing electric grids, our consumer anxiety that the battery may run out on a car. So addressing this complexity is going to be key for the issues that face us. One way we see many organizations doing that is starting to create digital models of the world they operate in, or something as complex as a jet engine, so they can better understand the implications of what they're doing, how to build more sustainable products and services, and then to be able to experiment digitally with ideas to reduce emissions, for example. The second trend we're seeing is everything is becoming more intelligent. By the end of this year alone, it's forecast that there will be 40 billion devices that are intelligent, that are throwing off data and insights into how they're operating. And the majority of manufacturers now are embracing the Internet of Things to make their supply chain and manufacturing plants more digital, and giving them better real-time insights into what's working, what isn't working, and where they can optimize their own operation. In Amazon, that's exactly what we've been doing. If you've ever been out to one of our fulfillment centers, you'd have seen many robots performing an intricate ballet on the floor, able to automate our operations, but to do it in a way that's more sustainable. And very similarly, with deliveries, being able to use insights from IoT devices and other sources to really understand how do we optimize the routes that trucks are taking to minimize the time they spend on the road and the emissions they generate. But these innovations themselves, which are enabling us to get better insights and to drive efficiencies, also raise the opportunity to think differently and think bigger about the world. If you've ever been into one of our Just Walk Out stores, it's a fascinating experience. You literally check in with your Amazon account, go pick up your food, and you just walk out. You don't queue and you don't have to pay in the store. It's all done with machine learning. So I see digital transformation and sustainability coming together to do some amazing things, make us more efficient, but also make us more effective in areas of innovation. Now, there's a problem with all of this. All of these devices are now throwing off vast quantities of data. And not only that, but regulatory reporting demands are getting higher and higher. So if we look to the future, we're going to see even more demands for data and for regulatory reporting. For instance, there's already demands for biodiversity data. But how do we take this data and not just create more insights, but actually create action from it so we can drive positive change in our organizations? And we see three areas here. And one of the phrases I love at the moment is data being described as the new milk. Milk ages. If you don't drink milk before its best by date, it goes off. And data is very similar. Unless you can drive value from data quickly, then why are you collecting it in the first place? So we see three areas organizations are focusing on to drive sustainability and digital transformation. The first is to capture the data in the first place and to make sure the data is even generated. So treating data as a product as we build new services and products, making sure we have people involved in that who are thinking ahead about what data do we need from those devices. The second area is reporting. How do we get better real-time reporting and even the automatic generation of those reports, taking us humans out of the loop and allowing technology to thrive in an area where it can spot patterns and produce insights and reports for us? We see about 35% of organizations over the next year will be advancing their ESG metrics and data management beyond reporting, though, and using AI to generate sustainability-driven cost benefits and competitive advantage. And in doing this, they really tap into this third element, which is how do they take this data and respond to it, turn it into action? And we're seeing higher and higher levels of machine learning and automation used in this area. In fact, in one report that was done across Europe, Middle East and Africa, we found that 51% of companies, the majority of companies, are now saying AI is one of the most dominant, promising tools we have in our arsenal to address sustainability. But one word of caution here. We still know the vast majority of issues with data are people, organization, and culture. Getting people to let go of the data in an organization and share it with others, giving people the data literacy in organizations so they know how to not just determine what they did last week with the data, but what should they be doing next week and how can they change an outcome next week? Predictive and prescriptive analytics. All of this complexity requires a different mindset in all of us as leaders and employees in organizations. We used to think in organizations about projects. We would go through a period of status quo, run a project, and then get back to business as normal. What we see organizations do now, though, is accept that change is constant. They have to continually be thinking, how can I be better today than I was yesterday, and better tomorrow than I was today? One example is the circular economy. How can I continue to look at my organization every day and say, how can I reuse, recycle data, technology, other assets like raw materials? For instance, across technology organizations in the public sector domain, about 36% of public sector organizations are looking at new ways of recycling IT equipment, for example. But this is looking at the whole life cycle of materials. Our CTO, Werner Vogels, talks about the best greenest resource is the resource we don't use. So 41% of organizations that IDC talked to across the public sector domain saw sustainability as actually a wonderful driver, not just to do the right thing for the planet, but also as a way of driving operational efficiency. I'll give you a very simple example. Take a day in your job. I did this many years ago. Look at how much time of the 8 hours, 10 hours you spend at work, how much time are you waiting for someone else to do something before you can continue your work? And how much time are you working on things which don't actually benefit your end customer or citizen? And surprisingly, this can be as high as 80%. So when we talk about eliminating waste, how can we spend our time better on areas of competitive advantage, of differentiation, and in areas of sustainability? And it's interesting, many organizations have introduced chief sustainability officers, but a trend we're seeing is these sustainability officers aren't actually sustainable in the long run. In fact, 10 to 20% of organizations by 2027 would have removed the role of chief sustainability officer, not because the person in the role failed, but because the person succeeded. The person drove a culture and a mentality of sustainability, so everyone in your organization is thinking about it, not just one person. And across public sector, we're seeing about 12% of organizations already saying that they have driven this culture change across their own organization. The fifth area is a bit of a quirky one, and you may wonder why it's a trend in sustainability. If we're going to deal with complexity, what is absolutely critical is we are open-minded. We go into complex problems, not pretending we know the answer, but curious about experimentation, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And to do that, we have to create a culture of learning. In fact, learning is work. Learning isn't something that's done after work. It's one of the reasons we're investing internally over $1 billion in educating 300,000 employees to give them the skills they need in the future. And that by the end of 2025, we would have upskilled 29 million people in the cloud. We want everyone to have the knowledge they need to be contributing to the challenges that we face in the future. And the reality is the majority of employees want to come and work for a company where they can learn and where they can fulfill their potential. They can really apply their knowledge to move your mission forward. The sixth trend and seventh trend are very similar. The sixth trend is really about IT sustainability. We technologists need to make technology more sustainable. In fact, nearly 2/3 of large organizations across EMEA believe they're going to spend at least 5% of their IT budget on sustainability actions alone by 2025. And I'll give you a few examples. So we've been in the cloud business since 2006, and just moving technology from a normal data center, fixed data center, into the cloud, typically it gives you 5 times more energy efficiency and can lower your carbon footprint. In fact, we believe that over the next few years, as we run all of the data centers off renewable energy, we can reduce your carbon footprint up to about 96%, depending on the workload. But it goes beyond that. Sustainability isn't just about emissions. We are working actively to get to a point where we are running all data centers by 2025 off renewable energy, 5 years ahead of our own goal. But this is also about being water positive, giving back more potable water to the community than we actually use to run the data centers, something really difficult to do in your own data centers. And then I'm sure you've heard all of the buzz about generative AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence. These are going to be core solutions to solving some of the most complex problems we have. But they are energy intensive and compute intensive. So we've been investing in silicon, in new processors like Graviton 3. So how do we drive up performance, reduce your energy consumption, and reduce your cost and carbon footprint? So from an IT point of view, as IT professionals, we all need to continue to look at how we run our own organizations more efficiently. But then we have an obligation beyond that. So the majority, nearly half of the critical decarbonization initiatives which have been identified to achieve the 2050 goal of net zero require technology. We can play a role in abating up to half the CO2 emissions required to reach the net zero goal. We can also reduce the cost of implementing those initiatives by up to 10% for a number of these initiatives. So by implementing technology effectively and making us all technologists, just like we are all expected to understand finance and people management, how do we have the same level of comfort with technology so we can sensibly apply technology to achieve our goals? We do it internally. So the Amazon business, for instance, uses machine learning. If you're an Amazon customer, you may remember the big boxes you used to get for small items, but now we've eliminated 2 million tons of packaging by using machine learning to drive the right packaging for the right product. And then organizations, I'm particularly inspired by this organization called Terraformation. They are on a mission to restore 3 billion acres of trees a year. That's greater than the US landmass. And to do that, they're using machine learning so they can efficiently and effectively plant trees to maximize the carbon offset. The reality is the challenges with global climate are already affecting many of us. So this isn't just about negating or mitigating those consequences. It's also about dealing with the problems that come as a consequence of climate change. So we've seen challenges with global supply chain resilience and diversity over COVID and even today. We've seen demand volatility. We've seen challenges with access to technology and materials and challenges around economic security. So this is about also building resilience into not just our organizations, but our people as well. The resilience to try new ideas and accept that some may not work, but also the resilience to know that whether we're running a technology project or a non-technology sustainability initiative, that we're thinking about the consequences if something should fail. It's one of the reasons many organizations move to the cloud for a higher level of resilience that can be achieved than they can possibly achieve in their own data centers. Now, for much of what you're doing, this may not be such a big consequence, but for many of the organizations you work for or work with, this is a key consideration, which is, I think for many years, we thought about sustainability as something we had to do, but it had a negative effect on our organization's ability to be successful and to be profitable. We don't see that to be the case. We can be purposeful about being sustainable, but we can also be successful with our mission. And if you're a commercial organization, be profitable. In fact, what we've seen is environmental and social governance directly affects performance. So companies on the S&P 500 ESG index suffered fewer losses and were more resilient than the S&P 500 during the COVID pandemic. In fact, the research we have indicates that these companies were also 2.5 times more likely to outperform their peers on key metrics. So I love this fact that when we talk about digitally transforming and we talk about sustainability, all of this comes together and can have a positive impact on our organizations. The final trend is a fairly broad one, and it's about invention, imagination, and patience. One of the things we try and do in Amazon is push as many decisions down as close to our customers as possible. We believe the people close to customers, close to citizens, close to students are the ones who can come up with brilliant ideas, who can experiment quickly and figure out what works and what doesn't work. The impatience I'll come back to in a moment, but I'll just give you another trend I see, and I'll pick on this company, but one of the trends we see is urban farming, for instance. More farms actually being brought into city centres to minimize transportation costs, to increase the ability to get food to citizens faster, and to do so in a very sustainable way. So some really interesting organizations starting to spring up globally that are capitalizing on thinking completely different about how agriculture is done. But a big part of this is your imagination and impatience. Often what holds us back is our skills and our imagination. So I'll just leave you with one thought as you think about the future. Let's think big. If you think small, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But start small. Don't allow the complexity of what faces us to hold us back. Be impatient about getting to the future. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm delighted that we're a partner of yours, and I look forward for more conversation as we go on in how we help you achieve your mission. Once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Phil, for this very insightful session. والآن ننتقل إلى الجلسة الثانية من جلسات هذا المنتدى بعنوان البيانات الخضراء، الجيل الجديد للحوسبة السحابية ومراكز البيانات. يشارك فيها كل من محمد بن سليمان الرئيس التنفيذي لمركز البيانات للحلول المتكاملة مورو، غريغ ويلسون الرئيس التنفيذي للتكنولوجيا في القطاع الحكومي في شركة مايكروسوفت، وليد يحيى المدير العام لشركة ديل تكنولوجيز في دولة الإمارات، ويحاورهم أخوي علي النعيمي مسؤول أول ابتكار في هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية. تفضل أخوي علي.
دام فضلك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today about an interesting session about the sustainable digital future in government. My name is Ali, and I am a Senior Innovation Officer at TEDRA, and I will be your moderator for today. As you are aware, we have a tremendous development in digital transformation in the UAE. As well, we are ensuring our obligations to have a sustainable and environmental friendly systems, adhering to the strategic initiatives by the UAE government to achieve net zero emissions, carbon emissions by 2050, making the Emirates the first Middle East and North Africa nation to do so. Applying sustainability practices and reducing carbon footprints in digital transformation is quite challenging, but it's doable, and our team gets today will try to answer these questions. I have today with me again Mohammed bin Sulaiman, CEO of Moro Hub. Also, we have Walid Yahya, General Manager Dell Technologies in the UAE, and then we have Greg Wilson, Chief Technology Officer in the public sector. We have 3 rounds of questions, and we'll start with Mohammed bin Sulaiman about solar energy. We know solar energy is emerging technology now in the world, and we have heard that the first data center will be powered by solar energy. So could you please just let us know about the Middle East first solar power green data center, and what is the milestones of that?
طبعا sure. Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Thanks for inviting Moro Hub to this session. Let me just give you a little background about our sustainability journey. We've started our operation in late 2018 with the first building that we have integrated, which is Moro Hub Jebel Ali Data Center, which is LEED Platinum certified facility. In 2020 and during the pandemic, we have launched the first green data center in the UAE and Middle East, Moro Hub Green Data Center, which is located in Al Yalais area in Dubai. It is a net zero facility powered by solar energy. In 2022, we have converted our Jebel Ali data center to be a carbon neutral green building by offsetting carbon emissions. In February this year, we have launched our latest data center, MoroHub MBR Green Data Center, which is recognized by Guinness as the largest solar power data center in the world. The data center is located in Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park in Dubai, of course. The project is planned to have total of 10 phases with total solar power capacity exceeding 100 megawatt. Before end of this year, we will be awarding construction of phase 2 of the data center to increase the capacity that we have and we offer to our clients. So this is in a nutshell what we are doing in Moro to have our platforms, our data centers are all green. And as I mentioned, the data center that we have launched this year in February got a Guinness record as the largest solar power data center in the world. And this is just one phase out of 10 phases that will follow.
Thank you, Mohammed. Spectacular numbers just you've been sharing about how this project is going on. I'll just move for this next question with Walid. Walid, can data centers be environmentally friendly, really?
I was muted. All right. First of all, Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me. Of course, we all want to make data centers greener and more efficient, and they can, definitely they can, with a significant improvement in the current energy consumption. But I would like to also call out that data center efficiency is not just an environmental issue. It is actually even more of an economical issue. And just to give you some numbers to support this idea, UAE is one of the most progressive countries when it comes to technology utilization in the region. And the aim of the government is that by 2030, we need to go to around 20% of the economy based on digital economy. To support that economical, I would say, target and goal of the UAE, you definitely need more data centers and you need more energy. As we speak today, data centers in the UAE, they account for approximately 5% of the country local or total energy consumption. I mean, green data center practices, and I would like to also congratulate Moro for having, one of the world's largest, actually, greener data centers in the world, which has been awarded by Dell, one of the, I would say, trophies among 7 partners in the world for the environmental societal governance program. Data centers practice not only reduce environmental impact, but can also lead to very cost savings, as I mentioned earlier. So this together with some other data points, like if we know that the data growth is actually happening at around 23% compound annual growth rate, that would require more, I would say, data centers, and we cannot just simply keep building data centers. So there are different techniques and practices to allow for this data center efficiency to become greener. I will not list them all because this could be a very long answer, but among which it's very important to understand that around 60% of the data center energy utilization comes from the infrastructure inside the data center. Around 30% comes from the cooling requirements within the data center. So working on this efficient infrastructure and efficient cooling definitely improves significantly the data center and allows us to provide more technology services within the same capabilities and capacities that we have today.
Thank you very much for just explaining the how it's friendly, and beyond of that, I'll just move to Greg. Greg, we just talked about the green data centers, and we are in a very fast pace moving, I would say, environment and digital transformation. So what is the need, how we can balance the need between rapid digital transformations that we are moving very fast and the necessity of sustainability. So how we can balance between them.
Again, salam alaikum and good morning, everyone. Delighted to join the panel for such an interesting topic. And I think balancing the need for rapid digital transformation with the necessity of sustainability is a complex challenge that I see governments facing around the world. It's how do you understand the advancing of sustainability of government businesses really from pledges to actually the progress to execution is key. And for me, digital transformation and the digital innovation you see and sustainability actually complement one another. And you can, through digital transformation, create a dividend from digital sustainability through the adding of digital assets, challenges, and capabilities beyond what we've seen before with people and machines, really. And therefore, by creating sustainable solutions, particularly for operational efficiency and addressing environmental impact and supporting societal infrastructure for a sustainable world, is how really digital transformation can help the driving of our sustainability in particularly data centers and how we go about our digital business. But what we're seeing in doing so is it's demanding people to think of how do you measure success in a variety of, to use a business word, bottom lines. You know, how do you address sustainability, performance, and regulatory compliance? What about operational efficiencies? Where's the growth opportunities to create that value? And if you don't have a solid digital foundation of data and technology, skills and culture, and even that partner ecosystem, then it does sometimes make that senior decision making rather layered and quite complex. And therefore, leaders around the world are thinking about this from how do we consider environmental impact? What are the potential pathways for improvement? Where should be targeted investments to create that value, whether that's value for the government and the citizens or value for a business in order to accelerate their sustainability progress and their business growth across the organizations that they deliver, to making those strategic decisions that drive value. And therefore, as we look at it, there's 6 real areas that digital transformation, and now more lately AI in particular, are helping drive sustainability. How do we enable data intelligence? It was talked about by a couple of speakers already. How do you strengthen the digital foundation, capture the value of your data to make more sustainable outcomes, particularly in real time? How do you deliver, secondly, sustainable IT systems to migrate, modernize to modern tools, to increase efficiencies and add business value? And then how do you optimize the performance to improve your operations and assets to unlock thereby sustainable growth? And that a lot of it all has to be considered end to end. And therefore, when we look at it, particularly for a data center, Microsoft would look at it from how it is the supply chain of the data center, not just the data center being sustainable, and how therefore can we manage the risks that face us. So for me, exciting time. You can't take away the power of digital transformation from sustainability. For me, they're complementary.
Right. Thank you, Greg. It's just how it's impressive how they complement in each other and the perspective that you put on. I'll just go back to Muhammad. In every project, there is a challenges, and we over these challenges with solutions. And if you could just share with us some of the challenges and solutions in setting up the sustainable technological infrastructure.
Yeah, sure. From what we have seen, some of the challenges that we have seen is basically the high initial cost. Implementing sustainable technology infrastructure involve upfront costs, which some customers don't want to bear. Like, for example, the building specification or IT hardware specification. Another challenge is data center consume huge amount of power, especially for cooling. Some IT infrastructure managers prefer to own and operate their own data centers rather than moving to cloud providers or data center operators, who can be more energy efficient as they leverage the volume of business and number of customers hosted on their platforms to share resources and optimize energy consumption. Another challenge that we have seen is some standards of data center certification bodies or authorities, which I believe need to be reviewed and updated. For example, allowing data center providers to leverage district cooling, which in many cases is more efficient solution than building your own cooling systems. Solutions, in my opinion, is to leverage green service providers who uses green sources of energy to run their IT and technology infrastructures. Green service providers use energy efficient IT hardware from leading technology companies like Dell, and this is what we're using in most of our data centers. Green service providers use also or offer virtualization technologies which allow multiple customers to share IT infrastructure without compromising in security, which help in reducing e-waste. Green service providers use advanced systems to monitor, optimize energy consumptions in their facilities. So these are the challenges that we have seen and the solutions that we believe can be implemented and offered to the clients here in the UAE.
Thank you, Mohammed. Just you made it clear, it's not always about technological solutions. Sometimes it's about policy and standardizations. And you talked about Dell innovations that it supported these infrastructure. And this is actually my second question to Walid. So Walid, what is the innovative technologies that is Dell using in order to make a green data centers and ensure data energy?
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the major factors in consuming energy within the data centers is around the infrastructure piece. So our focus is really on sustainable infrastructure, and it's an end-to-end data center solutions when it comes to energy efficient and cost effectiveness and being environmental friendly. We actually use a number of innovative, I would say, techniques and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, for example, to optimize the utilization of our equipment. So the equipment are simply smarter and more intelligent, and they learn also the behavior of the applications to be able to optimize the power consumption of these systems. But we also have a number of different new generations of design that are much more energy efficient. So for example, when it comes to storage, we also use new algorithms for data compression. Remember, data is growing at 23% year over year. If we keep just storing this data without any type of compression, that would actually require much bigger sizes of data center that we have today. So we actually have achieved, and I'm talking about the UAE. We have customers who have a data ratio compression of 1 to 13. So for every 13 units of data, you actually use only 1 unit. So data compression technologies, virtualization technologies are also very important type of techniques that we use to optimize the utilization of the current servers and the infrastructure. We also introduced a new program. We called it the Apex program. Just to give you an idea, Apex is basically, it's an as-a-service type of solution, and by which we minimize the e-waste, because we actually collect those equipment at the end of their life cycle, and we manage to recycle 95% of that returned equipment to be reused again and save the environment. So introducing some programs like Apex definitely improves that energy efficiency. And last but not least, we are committed for our recycled materials and the usage of recycled materials within our products. As we speak today, as an example, 75% of the laptops that we manufacture are recycled from plastic oceans and other recycled materials. So we're very, I think everyone, not just Dell, in the market have recognized that this is a necessity. It's not an option. It's not something that is nice to have.
Right. Thank you. Walid. So we talked about solar energy to power the data centers. We talked about AI optimizations. We talked about e-waste. We talked about circular economy and using recycled equipments. So the next question will be for Greg is, are you really building an underwater data centers? Could you just talk about that? It's just something impressive to me.
No problems. And I think really that links to what's Microsoft's recipe for technology and design as we go forward.
Definitely, yes.
And what we've seen, Microsoft's committed to sustainability and exploring innovative ways to make its data centers more environmentally friendly. And certainly all our data centers will be powered by renewable energy by 2025. But I think we look at it holistically against environmental challenges and what it means for products and services, what it means for customers and partners, policies, and our day-to-day operations aligned with sort of science and international goals to address the water, carbon, waste, and ecosystem challenges we have. So when we look at that recipe and how Microsoft's sustainability journey has gone from what we learned from doing it ourselves, is how migrating to the cloud and sustainable data centers reduce carbon emissions. And for example, these workloads transition can produce up to 98% more carbon efficiency by moving to cloud and 93% more energy efficiency than maybe on-prem data center options do. And it's that smart building solution. How do you think about embodied carbon, energy, and waste use? And then really optimizing our data centers to reduce the energy use and emissions as we go forward by investing in new technologies like liquid immersion cooling or batteries, cleaner fuels for power backup, etc., as we go forward to drive more innovation, not just in our products, but also our supply chain and devices and packaging. But that all requires collaboration and transparency with partners. And for us then in Microsoft, it's really about, if you want this sustainability journey and the technology, have that as a culture in an organization. It's not just a headline statistic, it's a culture in the organization and how you actually then can track it and measure it and pay the due diligence to that. And as we look forward to how we improve our designs, actually, I'll finish it where you started on Project Nortec. And how can we innovate with data centers? Project Nortec was an initiative where we were looking at the exploration of feasibility of underwater data centers. And the project used cold water, sea water to cool servers without tapping into freshwater resources. And therefore, it had a greater cooling efficiency than air. We also found that the servers failed at about 1/8 the rate of land-based control groups, so hence reducing server waste. And as a result of that, we're looking at different ways that we can potentially do it. So it is an initiative we're looking at underwater data centers. It's an exciting project. But as material engineering advances go forward, how can we use and build resilience into our data centers, help protect the organization and our data centers against natural threats that we see? For me, digital innovation is something that we're doing that can help organizations around the world lower their energy consumption, which ultimately reduces costs and emissions.
Thank you, Greg. This is just impressive. I'm just imagining, and probably I'll search it on YouTube, I'll see some of the prototypes or how it's been implemented. So the third round now of the questions is more will focus about the policies and the government entities and such on. So Mohammed, my last question here will be, how government entities assist the impact and the minimize of the environmental footprint of their digital infrastructures? So how it's been assessed?
So Ali, my recommendation here to the government and private entities is to leverage a green technology service providers like MoroHub. As I mentioned during the session, MoroHub data centers and MoroHub cloud platforms are all green. What we have started doing in this year, we started issuing green certificates to our customers, which quantify the carbon footprint saving. So today with us in Moro, we have more than 120 customers. Some of them already started receiving their certificates that basically tells them how much CO2 they have saved by leveraging a green infrastructure that we have built with an objective of reaching to the government goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. So this is my recommendation to both public and private sector.
Oh, thank you, Mohammed. Just the certifications and calculating the footprint, that is just something impressive. Walid, so Endel, how it's ensuring that all data centers not only meeting the current sustainability standards, but also future approved against evolving environmental and technological challenges?
So at Dell Technologies, we have set ambitious sustainability goals to reduce the environmental impact and promote sustainable practice. These goals include or are not limited to reducing the greenhouse gas emission, increasing the use of renewable energy, reducing even the water usage, and promoting sustainable product design and innovation. We have not just set these very vague, I would say, objectives. We have a clear, quantified plan. So by 2050, very much like the UAE, we would like to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions. That's a set goal, and we are actually tracking and measuring this. But there is also an execution plan, and it's actually in phases. So by 2030, for each product a customer buys from Dell Technologies, we will reuse or recycle an equivalent product. That's a quantifiable commitment. By 2030, 100% of our packaging will be made from recycled or renewable materials. By 2030, we will generate 75% of our electricity from renewable sources, and you see why we're very, excited about Moro's green data centers, because it's really very much in line with what we aspire for. And all Dell facilities by 2030 will actually have renewable sources by 2040 at 100%. When it comes to the product design, we are considering the whole entire life cycle, reducing emissions at every stage of and for less waste, greater energy efficiency, and a lower carbon footprint of the product. To give you an idea, we have tested immersive cooling technologies. So instead of the air cooling, we actually use liquid cooling, and that is something that will significantly improve, the energy efficiency of data centers. The last point is when it comes to R&D, we have already committed to investing 7.5 billion in R&D over the last 3 years. And R&D initiatives are also focused on looking at innovations across the entire density spectrum within the data centers. So it also involves designing and building infrastructure that occupies the smallest amount of physical space. That by itself will also reduce the need for building more data centers and will make them efficient. So for example, we are now testing and working on designing, instead of the 19-inch standard racks, we are working on a 21-inch rack, but that requires a lot of engineering and details that we are still testing with our global partners.
Thank you, Walid, just for sharing with us these numbers. And so we talked about having data centers on the sea. Now it's with liquids, and we'll just end up today's session with the last question for Greg. So what is the top 3 advices that you want us to take with us today when it's come to best sustainability practice in data centers and how it will help us to reduce emissions?
And I think whilst we talk about data centers, actually for me, this is all about business and how governments do their business, whether they're prioritizing sustainability initiatives to manage energy consumption and costs, to make progress towards their sustainability commitments, or to address ESG reporting requirements. To be serious about this and sustainability, for me, they need to think about their integrated, data-driven digital technologies and solutions and how they're going to do that. And if so, then what we're seeing is 3 insights, really. The first one is cost optimization is a key focus for organizations, governments and business, and they're looking to sustainability to achieve that. And in order to do that, they need to think about the value chain visibility that they have, where to optimize costs, increase efficiency and visibility for their full value chain. So cost optimization is first. The second one is the regulatory environment is changing rapidly, and reporting is now top of mind for many people. But invariably, the underlying issue is siloed data. So how do people think about where they're getting their data? Have they a clear strategy and practical solutions that they can actually measure? And this is where moving to the cloud and cloud data centers can help, and we can provide some of the tools to help you measure your approach towards sustainability goals and what you're trying to achieve. And then really, actually, the last one is, again, business-led. Sustainability has come inseparable from financial success, and pressures demand finance-led action as they go forward. So that long-term visibility of the business model and the supply chain, what it means for investors, and where there's risk if that's not addressed going forward. So there's those three insights to go. And as Waleed said, when you look at it from a data center and those specific areas, look at it at every stage of the data center life cycle, from the materials to build and run the data center, the supply chain, the efficient operations, even the land, equipment and energy procurement methods, and then your design engineering. And if you do that, you get end-to-end innovation, because fundamentally, what's good for business and good for the bottom line and good for governments is also good for the planet.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg. With that, I have to end this impressive session. It's a fabulous information that's been shared in here, fabulous numbers. A collaboration between a private sector and the government is just amazing. We are all aiming for the ultimate goal of achieving net zero carbon footprints by 2050 from a solar powered data centers, from an underwater data centers, from 100% recycled equipment in electrical servers. So this all impressive things, and just a spectacular. Thank you very much again for your time, for the information, and I'll just give the virtual stage back to you, Ammar.
ثانك يو علي، شكرا جزيلا لكم على هذه الجلسة الملهمة صراحة، ما قصرتوا. بس حبيت أنوه لكل الأخوة الحاضرين لهذا المنتدى أن المنتدى حاليا متوفر باللغتين العربية والإنجليزية، في خيار لاختيار اللغة اللي أنتم تفضلونها، موجود أيضا حتى في الشات. إذا حابين تغيرون اللغة تضغطون على interpretation، وهذا بيساعدكم تختارون اللغة اللي أنتم تفضلونها. الآن اسمحوا لي أني أنتقل إلى كلمة رئيسية راح يقدمها الرئيس التنفيذي السابق لتكنولوجيا المعلومات في حكومة استونيا، السيد كريستو فهر، بعنوان إكس رود التكامل الرقمي المستدام. ونشاهد معا هذا الفيديو لجلسته.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kristo Vaher. I'm the Technology Director for Digital Nation. Digital Nation is a digital change advisory originating from Estonia and on a mission to build future-ready societies around the world. We merge world-known Estonian expertise and global best practices with your highest ambitions. Today, I'm going to be focusing on gold standard of digital sustainability. I will tell you a little bit about technological choices and the choices we made in Estonia. I'm going to tell you about interoperability and interoperability platforms' importance, as well as sustainability and responsibility when making decisions regarding the previous two. In order to kick things off, however, here's a very key mantra of mine that I implement whenever I'm making strategic decisions regarding technology. The most impactful role of technology is to automate the routines in our everyday lives so that we can use the time saved to focus on what is really important. What this means is that smart application of technology allows us to live more. It allows us to spend more time with our friends, with our family. It allows us to be more productive at our work. It allows us to be more creative without being hampered down by routines and bureaucracy. It allows us to be more. And I think this is important for public sector and governments as well when building digital information systems, is that we want to build more with less that we have. As mentioned, I'm Kristo. I'm the former CTO for the government of Estonia. I was in this role for 5 years. I was responsible for engineering leadership, engineering community. I was responsible for strategic decisions regarding technology, as well as financing of various digitalization projects. This was an inspiring period in my life, and I realized that I'm going to be working in this field one way or another until I retire, so to speak. But if you haven't heard about what Estonia is known for, here are a few key things that might be of interest. Estonia has been known for multiple different things that you can Google and look and read more about online. But there are a few things to mention here. For example, for one thing, 2023, this year, we broke the 50% barrier of digital-based internet voting. We're the first country in the world that had its most important parliamentary election being done online in a way that over 50% votes were cast digitally. This was absolutely amazing. Then we've been using state use, like as a state, we've been using blockchain for already ever since Bitcoin became a thing. And we're using it in a way that we assure our digital states security through blockchain in a way that we store data fingerprints in blockchain, which means that if a hacker tries to edit government data, then we can detect it through the use of blockchain. This is absolutely massive. It wasn't possible before 2008. Then last year, we launched proactive live event services, which made digital services more streamlined and easy for a citizen. At least some of the more complex services are now possibly delivered through a proactive way. And we're also looking into virtual assistants as a way of service delivery. Right now on informational services, but in the future also more critical government services. What this means is that future government services, digital services, are going to be conversational. They're going to be delivered to a citizen like people are talking to one another over chat or over the phone, rather than using web forms, complex menus. All of that is actually in the past. The future services are going to be conversational. They are going to be more convenient and easily understood by the citizen without having to understand all those web forms. But at the same time, it's important to note that technology and technological choices have to be sustainable. They have to be also responsible, which are both topics near and dear to my heart. For one thing, technology has to be an enabler, not a driver. As I mentioned previously, you should not just apply technology in a large scale without knowing what you're actually trying to impact in your government. Find the problem, then find tools that would help you solve this problem. And this problem might not actually be technological, but technology might help. The second thing, and this is a critical thing, is Conway's law. Melvin Conway is a computer scientist who decades ago came up with Conway's law, which said, if your digital government or your organization is being given a task to come up with a perfect information system for your organization, your routines, your laws, then the people involved are able to come up with that perfect information system. But the problem is that if people change, if laws change, if your processes and expectations change, if your culture changes, then the system is not going to be perfect anymore, and it's going to become legacy. And this is why Conway's law is important to understand, because Conway's law is one of the core reasons why digital states and large-scale organizations should build their digital architectures decentralized, as Estonia did. Estonia already over 20 years ago figured out that we want to have our digital delivery, digital information system decentralized in a way that engineers working close to the police are working in a separate unit. They're building their own information systems. Health information system the same way, law information systems and various units developing their services in their own way, autonomously, independently, decentralized. So multiples of IT digital services are being delivered, not centrally in a single database or a single service bus, but decentralized. Estonia did it as a small country. Many countries come to Estonia and ask, why would you do it in this way? Estonia did it in this way because this allows us to be flexible. It allows us to change parts without having to change the whole. And this also applies to respecting your culture, because there are certain things that most different countries share, but there are some things that are always different. And decentralized digital government ecosystem allows you to respect your own culture by having those systems that are unique to you, and at the same time share the systems that are common. And you can do this with your decentralized digital government because it's not all in a single information system. You don't need to build a large digital government information system that does everything that already everybody else also does. It's going to be too expensive, and it's not going to be responsible nor sustainable. And last but not least, when applying digital technology, you need to measure, and you need to be responsible in your measurement and applying of technology in a way that you can detect problems early. Private sector is often very stuck with metrics and measurements. Often public sector isn't, but public sector should be. Because even though public sector technically usually cannot become bankrupt like private sector can, then we need to apply the same principles there. We need to understand if doing this expensive project, does it have an impact that we need? Is it sustainable? Is it green? Is it going to be impactful for our private sector or our public sector business processes or not? We need to measure it. Public sector shouldn't apply technology as a luxury. It should be something that we do responsibly. Now, moving onwards, here's a picture that we can sort of, everybody can share. Everybody can draw a picture like this of their digital government. This is a very basic abstract view of how usually digital governments are looked at. We have citizen services, government business services, private sector business services, reporting and statistics, so on and so forth. Then central platforms that we share, such as digital identity. Then, of course, infrastructure in the bottom layer. This is something that, you know, each of us can draw, that our digital government looks something like this. But in reality, digital governments don't really look like this. They look something like this. This is a sort of visualized way of Estonia's digital government, which is decentralized. As you can see, there are multiple different nodes. Each of those nodes is responsible for some kind of data or needs to use some kind of data. Some nodes are hotspots because they are more popular, such as population registry, but they are entirely decentralized. There are a few key things that are of importance here. For one thing, those systems on this picture here are using X-Road. This is a visualized log of X-Road. X-Road is a data exchange interoperability layer. And one of the key reasons why decentralized digital government architecture, which is the right way to go about when building a digital state, is that interoperability layer is something that allows you to share a language. All of those nodes communicate with each other through a same kind of protocol, same kind of language. We understand each other because I'm speaking English and you understand English. And as a result, it's possible for us to communicate. Same thing applies to a digital government. You want your decentralized units that are being developed agile way, that are being developed responsibly, are able to talk with one another through similar or the same language. This is what X-Road provides for Estonia. The language is being shared. If you don't have a shared language, then those integrations are going to be far more expensive and definitely not sustainable. As I mentioned X-Road here, I will have a few more slides about X-Road. X-Road is something that some of you have heard about. I will give you a little bit of context here, but it's important to start off with one thing. X-Road is an established and secure interoperability platform developed in partnership of Estonia, Finland, and Iceland. It's deployed in over 20 countries, and it is open source. The key thing here is that while Estonia did originally kick off X-Road, it has been already for many years been equally partnered by Estonia, Finland, and Iceland. So it is now not a thing of just Estonia, it's actually a thing of multiple different countries that are looking at decentralized digital government in a very same and similar way. It's also open source, which means it's free. You can find X-Road's code online. You can have your partners look into X-Road's code, documentation, additional modules. You can deploy it in a way without having to pay licensing fees and so on and so forth. X-Road is a digital government technology built in a responsible way. I personally don't believe that the government should reasonably vendor lock, and I will get to vendor lock and open source differences in a few more slides soon. But X-Road itself is something like this. While X-Road is a decentralized platform, what the decentralization means is that your different information systems, let's say your population registry and let's say your health information system, they have their security guards called security servers. So these security servers are between the actual information systems that can be built on any kind of technology you want. But in front of them, there are these security servers. And security servers are responsible for data exchange. So if your system requires data from another system in your decentralized digital government, then you ask it from your security server that connects to another security server, validates itself, and gets the data in return. This is important because X-Road in its decentralized ecosystem has actually not been down a single time while I was the CTO for the Estonian government. This is because Estonia's X-Road implementation doesn't have a single dependency, which means there's no single component that you can bring down that makes sure that everything else suddenly comes down. Yes, it is possible that one of the information systems could be down or being updated, and it affects other systems as well, but it doesn't affect the whole ecosystem at once. It affects maybe large parts of it, but not the whole ecosystem. So X-Road, as it is always up and running, which is great for cybersecurity concerns, and it's also great for responsibility and sustainability of your systems, because it doesn't bring down the whole economy at once. Why we did X-Road and the way we did it and what were the core principles of X-Road? For one thing, it's shared, no paper. This is something that we all agree with, is that you want to get rid of paper and paper archives. Estonia did it the same way 20 years ago. Estonia becoming paperless was a major achievement for digitalization strategy. Second thing is once only principle. Once only principle means that if you've asked something from your citizen, you should not ask it again unless it's needed for privacy reasons. Which means that in Estonia's case, your population data can be accessed over private sector to validate if your application is filled in the same way as you filled it in the government to detect fraud, so to speak. But once only principles, the idea is to remove or reduce bureaucracy in your data being handled by the government. The third thing is that X-Road is established in law in Estonia. Being established in law means that it's mandatory for government services and government data sources to provide their data over X-Road and only over X-Road. It's not possible. It's not one of the options. It is the only option. And this is again important in terms of sustainability, because it means that we do not have hundreds and thousands of different ways of integrating information systems. We have one way, and it's maintained and sustained in the same way. Of course, uncompromising cybersecurity has been goal for X-Road, because we are sharing private government data over X-Road. It cannot have compromises in terms of cybersecurity. As I mentioned previously, also no central dependencies, absolutely key. With X-Road, it's important that government cannot be taken down just by one of the systems being taken down. And last but not least, open source. Public sector and government as a whole needs freedom in selecting its partners. When a partner is good, you can have a long-term relationship with them, but you always need to have an ability to change a partner if needed, which means that core technologies of governments should be open source. The second reason for open source is transparency. You need to be able to show the technologies that government uses to your citizens, to your private sector, in order to enable and enhance trust. X-Road has been the cornerstone of Estonia's digital strategy for over 20 years. This also includes the Digital Agenda 2030, which is our newest digital government strategy, which also includes three green digital government goals. And X-Road is serving those goals as well. But before we get to some of those aspects, it's important to note out these three interesting numbers. X-Road has had over 200 million automated requests in the last month. This is live data. This means about 150 requests per citizen. This is rather critical, which means that all of this doesn't have to be done manually. It is being automated. The second thing is 2,391 years of citizen work has been saved in the last year alone. Citizen work is a key here. X-Road is primarily used by private sector. The third number shows that 97% of X-Road users are actually private sector. 3% is the citizen. And just by automating citizen-related requests, we have saved 2,391 years of citizen work in the last year alone. This is massive. This is again one of the examples how technology should be applied and used to actually save time, save time so that everybody can do something else with the time that you actually saved. X-Road as a technology is also fulfilling various sustainable development goals. Here's a list of the ones that are currently being listed there. You see 8 from 1 to 16 here. There are 2 links that I suggest you follow up and look up on. This is xroad.global/sustainability, as well as an interesting tool called X-Road Emissions Calculator. Again, another interesting tool that you can see how X-Road is being implemented and how it could actually, what kind of sort of footprint it has on emissions. So you can look at those 2 things, especially because X-Road is not just a technology, it is actually something that looks beyond than just being a technology or a single tool. It's also a mindset of how to build sustainable and responsible digital governments in this year and onwards. So to wrap these things up a little bit, there are top recommendations for me for a sustainable digital government to follow. You can look back at my previous presentation and then catch a few other things there that might have been interest to you. But please keep in mind these 3 things. Now, for one thing, decentralization is absolutely critical. I mentioned this multiple times. In this day and age, I would never recommend anyone to build a centralized digital government. You need to have your services built decentralized. You need to have freedom to exchange technologies, migrate technologies, replace parts in it. When your laws change, when your cultural expectations or when your citizen expectations change, you need this. Second thing, you need to have a shared interoperability stack platform that shares language that everybody, every component can share and talk to one another with. Without the shared language, without shared stack or platform, it's going to be far more expensive and definitely not sustainable. And the third thing is open source and protocols. Governments should procure technologies and solutions in a way that they can date the technologies themselves, publish them open source, or develop them with another partner somewhere else. Governments need to have this kind of freedom in order not to be vendor locked. It's very likely that through this, you can build a far more flexible and far more agile and far more sustainable digital governments as a result. And last but not least, continuous experimentation is very important. Try out new things in small scale, fail fast. And then if you succeed, scale those successes. You need to find a way how your digital government is going to be built brick by brick rather than house by house. The only way to do this is just by being continuously experimenting, trying out new things, finding new kinds of innovations that adhere to you. And then you can share those lessons learned with others. All right, I'm wrapping this up. Thank you for listening. As I mentioned, you can contact me further if you have any further questions. You can check what Digital Nation is doing on the links as well. And as I mentioned, we do not copy paste the past, we co-create the future. We have taken lessons learned from Estonia, but Estonia's model is something that wouldn't apply to most digital governments of today. But there are very many great lessons learned from Estonia's digital government way of approaching, but also from many other digital governments in the world in order to build the next digital societies that take into account, as I mentioned, the needs of respecting your culture, the needs to be sustainable, and the needs to be flexible to any kind of change. And none of those things are solely the responsibility of technology. They are the solely responsibility of leadership, making the right decisions at the right times. And the technology is only the enabler of making those successes actually true. Thank you. And hopefully we'll be able to share more in the future. Have a good day.
نشكر السيد كريستوفر على هذه الجلسة الاستراتيجية، والآن ننتقل إلى جلسة قيادية عن أفضل الممارسات المستدامة في مجال التحول الرقمي في دولة الإمارات بعنوان الاستدامة الرقمية، الموازنة بين التكنولوجيا والإنسان. يشارك بهذه الجلسة كل من سعادة مطر سعيد الحميري، الرئيس التنفيذي لمؤسسة حكومة دبي الرقمية، كذلك سعادة الدكتور محمد عبد الحميد العسكر مدير عام برنامج تم في دائرة التمكين الحكومي، والأستاذ بدر هبيس الرئيس التنفيذي للابتكار والتكنولوجيا في مجموعة بيئة، وتحاورهم الأخت نهى الجنيبي مدير مشروع أول في هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية. تفضلي أختي نهى.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سعيدة بوجودي في هاي المنصة لإدارة هذا الحوار المهم مع مجموعة من صناع القرار والخبراء في التحول الرقمي للحديث في عنوان الجلسة اللي ذكرناه، وهو الاستدامة الرقمية، الموازنة بين التكنولوجيا والإنسان. بداية، في العصر الرقمي اللي نعيشه اليوم أصبح دور الحكومات في تعزيز الاستدامة أكثر أهمية من أي وقت مضى. اليوم نشهد حقبة تحويلية بحيث تتشابك التكنولوجيا والحوكمة لإنشاء حلول أكثر ذكاء وكفاءة وصديقة للبيئة، وهذا شفناه في العديد من الحوادث اللي صارت لنا من ناحية الجائحة اللي عشناها، ومدى ضمان استدامة الحياة بعد توفير هذه الحلول اللي وفرت لنا إياها اليوم الرقمي. من جانب آخر، فإن فكرة التكنولوجيا أو فكرة التحول الرقمي بحد ذاتها هي فكرة صديقة للبيئة مثل ما أشار العديد من الخبراء. للتحول الرقمي مضامين عديدة ومعان لا حصر لها وانعكاسات وفيرة على حاضر الإنسان ومستقبل. هاي المعاني والمضامين ومدى ارتباطها بالاستدامة هي محور حوارنا اليوم في هاي الجلسة مع متحدثينا: سعادة مطر الحميري الرئيس التنفيذي لمؤسسة حكومة دبي الرقمية، سعادة الدكتور محمد العسكر مدير عام برنامج تم، والأستاذ بدر هبيس الرئيس التنفيذي للابتكار في مجموعة بيئة. نرحب فيكم جميعاً ونبدأ حوارنا اليوم بالسؤال الأول لسعادة مطر سعيد الحميري. مرحبا سعادتك. اليوم
مرحبا،
حياك الله. اليوم دبي كأفضل ممارسات تطبقها ولها علاقة باستراتيجية الحكومة اللاورقية. إذا توجهنا للحكومة اللاورقية لا شك فيها لها تتوافق مع مبادئ الاستدامة، فكيف ساهمت هذه المبادرة في تحقيق أهداف دبي المستدامة؟ وشو هو الأثر المتوقع في تقليل البصمة الكربونية للإمارة؟
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. شكرا أختي نهى وفريق العمل على هذه الاستضافة الكريمة، وأتمنى لكم كل التوفيق في هذا المنتدى الذي يأتي بأيام قليلة قبل بداية مؤتمر الأطراف كوب 28، والذي سيعقد إن شاء الله في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة في مدينة إكسبو دبي. طبعا استراتيجية دبي للمعاملات اللاورقية هي مبادرة أطلقها سيدي صاحب السمو الشيخ حمدان بن محمد بن راشد آل مكتوم ولي عهد دبي رئيس المجلس التنفيذي في عام 2018، بحيث وضع لنا هدف واحد، وهو بأن دبي ستحتفل بنهاية عصر المعاملات الورقية الحكومية بإصدار آخر وثيقة حكومية مطبوعة بحلول عام 2021. ويسعدني أن يكون عنوان هذه الجلسة هو الاستدامة الرقمية والموازنة بين التكنولوجيا والإنسان، حيث أن استراتيجية دبي اللاورقية التي أنجزتها دبي في عام 2021 تجسد بالفعل هذا العنوان، وتشكل مثالا حيا على الموازنة بين استخدام التكنولوجيا ومصلحة الإنسان. أثناء دراسة الجدوى التمهيدية السابقة لاستراتيجية الحكومة اللاورقية، وضعنا في الاعتبار نوعين من الأثر: الأثر المباشر على حياة الناس في دبي، والأثر غير المباشر على استدامة البيئة والمساهمة في استراتيجية الحياد الكربوني. في الأثر المباشر درسنا عوائد هذه الاستراتيجية على حياة الناس، وانطلقنا من حقيقة أن سكان دبي موظفيها يهدرون كثير من وقتهم في إعداد وتقديم الأوراق اللازمة للمعاملات الحكومية، وتبين أن المعاملات التقليدية تستهلك من المتعامل العادي من متوسطة 55 ساعة تقريبا في العام، وتكلفه ما يقارب 2500 درهم من ماله. وقيمنا انعكاس على ذلك على الحياة العائلية للناس وراحتهم ورفاهيتهم. ودرسنا أيضا انعكاسه على الحكومة من حيث ساعات العمل لموظفي الحكومة، وأيضا عدد الأوراق المستخدمة ومستلزماتها الأخرى المستخدمة لطباعة هذه الأوراق. أما من ناحية الأثر الغير مباشر، فدرسنا انعكاسات ذلك على موضوع الاستدامة، حيث تبين أن تطبيق المعاملات اللاورقية سيسهم في توفير الكثير من الورق، وبالتالي إنقاذ العديد من الأشجار، مما ينعكس بشكل إيجابي على جهود خفض الانحباس الحراري والبصمة الكربونية والاستدامة، وخصوصا إذا ما نضيف إليها تقليص التلوث الناجم عن تخفيض استخدام السيارات للتنقل. وقد نجحنا بحمد الله وتوفيقه في تحقيق هذا المستهدف قبل وقته، وكان الأثر كبير كما بينت الأرقام. تم توفير أكثر ما يقارب من 336 مليون ورقة في حكومة دبي بشكل سنوي، وهذا ما يقدر عدد الأشجار التي يتم إنقاذها من القطع نحو ما يقارب 40,000 شجرة سنوية. ومن ناحية أخرى بلغ الوفر المالي الناشئ عن وقف استخدام المعاملات الورقية نحو ما يقارب 1,300,000,000 درهم بشكل سنوي. وأيضا من جانب آخر تم اعتماد سياسات خاصة بالمشتريات الحكومية الخضراء في حكومة دبي، والتي أيضا تراعي المواصفات والمعايير الخاصة بها عند عمليات الشراء، سواء كانت من الأنظمة والأجهزة الرقمية اللي موجودة في الحكومة. وما زلنا مستمرين إن شاء الله في هذا الحفاظ على هذه المكتسبات عبر السياسات المتبعة، ويتم قياسها بشكل دوري على مستوى الحكومة ورفعها لمتخذي القرار.
تشكر سعادتك على هذه المداخلة الطيبة فيما يخص حرص دبي اليوم أنها توصل للمراحل أو للمركز الأول في أنها توفر أو تطبق الاستراتيجية اللاورقية لها وتطبيق أفضل الممارسات لها كذلك. سعادتك بننتقل الحين للسؤال الثاني مع سعادة الدكتور محمد العسكر. دكتور محمد العسكر، في ضوء التركيز العالمي على الاستدامة، كيف يمكن لحكومة أبو ظبي اليوم ومنصة تم دمج الممارسات المستدامة في استراتيجيات التحول الرقمي في أبو ظبي؟ تفضل
السلام
سعادتك.
عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نشكركم على الاستضافة بهذا المنتدى وإتاحة الفرصة لعرض نبذة عن تجربة وإنجازات حكومة أبو ظبي في الاستدامة، وبالأخص من منظور التحول الرقمي وتوحيد القنوات الخدمية وتحسين تجربة التعامل. نحن إذا نظرنا للاستدامة هي ركيزة أساسية من استراتيجية حكومة أبو ظبي. فمثلا أحد أهداف استراتيجية أبو ظبي هي خفض انبعاثات الكربون بنسبة 22% بحلول عام 2027. فبالتالي تم تصميم استراتيجيات التحول الرقمي في إمارة أبو ظبي لتتوائم مع هذه الاستراتيجية. فعندنا مبدأ اسمه الاستدامة بالتصميم Sustainability by Design. معناته كل ما نصمم أي نموذج رقمي لازم من البداية من الأساس يكون عندنا مبدأ Sustainability جزء لا يتجزأ من هذه عملية التصميم. ولا يخفى على الجميع اليوم دور التحول الرقمي اليوم في خفض انبعاثات الكربون، ولكن أيضا التحول الرقمي بالأخص الداتا سنتر والكلاود سيرفيسز لها دور كبير في المساهمة في انبعاثات الكربون بجانب سلبي. وعليه كان يجب العمل على تعظيم الاستفادة من التحول الرقمي لخفض انبعاثات الكربون في إمارة أبو ظبي، وأيضا تقليل الآثار السلبية من المساهمات اللي يمكن التحول الرقمي والداتا سنتر تقوم فيها في انبعاثات الكربون. ونلاحظ اليوم في منظومة التحول الرقمي بشكل عام في إمارة أبو ظبي وبالأخص في منظومة تم فعلا خلق هذا التوازن. فاليوم فريق حكومة أبو ظبي متمثلة في مختلف الجهات الحكومية قام بتحويل جميع خدماتها الحكومية لخدمات رقمية وتحسين إجراءاتها وتقديمها بخدمات غير ورقية وتوفيرها على منصة حكومية موحدة، وبالإضافة تقليل القنوات الرقمية. فاليوم مثلا تم توفر أكثر من 750 خدمة من أكثر من 30 جهة حكومية وخاصة على منظومة تم. بالتالي تم انتقال من أكثر من 80 تطبيق إلى تطبيق واحد، وأكثر من 140 موقع للخدمات لموقع واحد خدمي في الإمارة. فبالتالي نحن ساهمنا في تقليل الرقعة الرقمية، واللي أثر في التأثير الإيجابي في تقليل المساهمة من التحول الرقمي بانبعاثات الكربون. من الجانب الآخر تم العمل على تحسين تجربة المتعاملين وتقليل الاحتياجات الورقية وتحليل الخطوات، واللي أدى إلى تبني الجمهور من مختلف شرائح المجتمع إلى استخدام القنوات الرقمية. وصل نسبة استخدام القنوات الرقمية عندنا اليوم ل 95%. فهذا أدى اليوم إلى تقليل مراكز الخدمة الفيزيكال الموجودة في إمارة أبو ظبي 120 إلى 20 مركز خدمة موحد يقدم جميع الخدمات. فأدى ذلك أيضا إلى تقليل أكثر من 21 مليون زيارة سنوية لمراكز الخدمة، وذلك أدى لخفض أكثر من 155 ألف طن من انبعاثات الكربون سنويا وتوفير 53 مليون ورقة سنويا. بالإضافة إلى ذلك وفرات كثيرة من ناحية 400 مليون درهم إماراتي على الحكومة، أكثر عن 400 ألف ساعة عمل على موظفي الحكومة. فإذا لاحظنا اليوم نحن نظرنا للاستدامة كجزء لا يتجزأ من منظومة التحول الرقمي، ونظرنا كيف نحن ممكن نحسن تجربة المتعاملين وبالتالي نستفيد من القنوات الرقمية المختلفة التي توفرها اليوم التكنولوجيا، وأيضا قللنا من الرقعة الرقمية اللازمة لتوفير هذه الخدمات. فنحن نشوف نحن في إمارة أبو ظبي وفرنا نموذج متكامل للتوازن بين الآثار الإيجابية للتحول الرقمي والآثار السلبية للتحول الرقمي.
تشكر سعادتك على هاي المعلومات. واضح من قياس هاي النتائج هذا أكبر دليل لمدى النجاح اللي وصلته تطبيق هاي الممارسات في إمارة أبو ظبي. ننتقل للأستاذ هبيس، الرئيس التنفيذي للابتكار في مجموعة بيئة للشارقة. أستاذ هبيس، من المجموعة اليوم مجموعة بيئة كان لديها نماذج فريدة في الابتكار الرقمي المستدام. كيف تعمل المجموعة على تطوير نماذج رقمية مستدامة تلبي حاجة شرائح المجتمع المختلفة في إمارة الشارقة أو خارجها؟
شكرا على استضافتكم لمجموعة بيئة وطرح موضوع الاستدامة والتحول الرقمي. في البداية أود الإشارة إلى أن بيئة هي مجموعة وطنية رائدة في بقطاعي الاستدامة والتحول الرقمي، تقدم خدماتها بكل فخر لإمارة الشارقة وعجمان وأبو ظبي، وعلى الصعيد الإقليمي تعمل في المملكة العربية السعودية وجمهورية مصر العربية. تعمل المجموعة وفقا للتوجيهات ورؤية القيادة الرشيدة والاستراتيجية الوطنية الخاصة بتحقيق الحياد الكربوني والطاقة النظيفة والمتجددة والتنمية، إضافة للانسجام مع المستهدفات الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة. يعد التحول الرقمي واحد من أبرز الركائز الأساسية ضمن استراتيجية مجموعة بيئة التي تعمل على تعزيز التكنولوجيا والاستفادة منها من أجل غد أفضل وبناء مستقبل مستدام للجميع. تحرص المجموعة على تطوير نماذج رقمية مستدامة تلبي حاجة المجتمع، إيمانا بأهميتها في المساهمة بتحقيق الأهداف البيئية والاقتصادية ودعم الجهود الوطنية الخاصة بالتنمية الشاملة. بعض الأمثلة: استطاعت المجموعة تطوير عدد من المشاريع النوعية التي ترتكز على التكنولوجيا، ابتداء بمقرها الرئيسي بإمارة الشارقة الذي يعد أحد أكثر المباني في العالم استدامة وذكاء، كما أن المبنى يعتمد جزئياً على الطاقة الشمسية وحاصل على شهادة ليدز بلاتينوم، وهي نظام دولي لقياس تصميم وإنشاء وتشغيل مباني مراعية للبيئة وعالية الأداء. ترسيخاً وإيماناً بأهمية التحول الرقمي، استثمرت مجموعة بيئة في مشاريع من شأنها تقديم حلول تكنولوجية مبتكرة تعود بالنفع على المجتمع ككل وتعزز جودة حياة الناس عن طريق شركة إيفوتك. شركة إيفوتك لعبت دور محوري في ترسيخ التحول الرقمي، وأطلقت قبل عدة أشهر بالتعاون مع وزارة الصحة ووقاية المجتمع تطبيق تطمين. تطبيق تطمين هو منصة لتتبع الأدوية واستخدام التسلسل الدوائي، وأهدافه التأكد من وجود الإمدادات الكافية من الأدوية والمنتجات الصيدلانية التي يكثر الطلب عليها، تعقب الأدوية من الإنتاج وصولا إلى استخدام المرضى، وتتبع المنتجات المغشوشة، وتسهيل سحب الأدوية المنتهية صلاحيتها من السوق، وتعزيز القدرة على سحب الأدوية من السوق في أي وقت. مثال آخر قدمته مجموعة بيئة هو تأسيس شركة ري لايف، وهي منظومة رقمية متكاملة مختصة بقطاعي التجارة والخدمات اللوجستية الأسرع نمواً في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة. وتضم ري لايف تحت مظلتها منصتين: منصة ري لايف كولكت التي توفر خدمات نقل وشحن وخدمات اللوجستية حسب الطلب أو موعد محدد، وثانياً ري لايف ماركت التي تقدم مجموعة من الخيارات المتخصصة بالمزايدات والمداولة أو التداول والبيع وشراء المواد لإعادة تدوير اللي قمنا بإعادة تدويرها. كانت تلك بعض النماذج الرقمية المستدامة التي طورتها مجموعة بيئة لتلبية حاجة شرائح المجتمع المختلفة في إمارة الشارقة ودولة الإمارات والمنطقة. شكرا.
تشكر أستاذ هبيس على المداخلة اللي أعطيتنا إياها، والأمثلة اللي ذكرتها هي خير دليل على المبادرات اللي اليوم تبنتها مجموعة بيئة للوصول لهاي المرحلة. نعود إلى سعادة مطر الحميري. دبي اليوم تعتبر مركز أعمال وسياحة عالمي يتعامل مع مختلف الثقافات والجنسيات بشكل يومي، سواء كان كزوار أو مقيمين أو مستثمرين. السؤال هو اليوم كيف توازن دبي اللاورقية بين التحول اللاورقي والثقافات الورقية لمختلف الجنسيات والقدرات البشرية. مثل ما نعرف في اختلاف سواء كان في مرحلة التطور اللي وصلت لها الدول الأخرى، واليوم دبي وصل لمرحلة أعلى، فكيف يصير التعامل مع هذه المعاملات؟ تفضل سعد.
شكرا أختي نهى، سؤال جدا مهم. يمكن هذا السؤال دائما نسأل عنه في كثير من المؤتمرات حتى في اللقاءات والاجتماعات الأخرى. أحب أكد أن دائما نحن محافظين على جميع القنوات مفتوحة للمتعامل، فمراكز الخدمة موجودة والقنوات الرقمية متوفرة والمتعامل له حرية الاختيار فيها. أيضا نحن ما نطلب من المتعامل أي وثيقة تم إصدارها في حكومة دبي أو إصدار وثيقة ورقية له إلا إذا كان المتعامل نفسه طلبها. ولاحظنا أيضا أنه في إقبال كبير من القطاع الخاص على تبني هذه المبادرة في كثير من المعاملات الخاصة بهم، سواء في البنوك والشركات الخاصة أو محلات تجارية، أو شفناها حتى على مستوى محطات البترول. الحمد لله اليوم لو ننظر للموضوع بشكل عام، دبي تتمتع بمركز جدا متقدم ورائد عالميا في مؤشرات التحول الرقمي والحياة الرقمية. وفي تقييمات الأمم المتحدة لمؤشر الخدمات الرقمية الأخير اللي هو في 2022 حققت دبي المركز الأول في مؤشر البنية المؤسسية واستخدام التكنولوجيا والمحتوى. هذه الجهود تأتي من سجم مع استراتيجية دبي الرقمية التي تهدف إلى رقمنة الحياة في دبي والعمل على منظومة رقمية موثوقة وقوية تعزز الاقتصاد الرقمي وتمكن المجتمع الرقمي. اليوم انتقلت دبي من مركز الخدمات الرقمية إلى التجارب، خلينا نقول من مرحلة الخدمات الرقمية إلى التجارب الرقمية الشاملة التي تمتاز بالاستباقية والتنبؤية والمتكامل لتقديم تجربة سلسة للمتعامل على مدار الساعة. هذا الوضع اليوم أسهم في الوصول إلى وضع يتسم بأسلوب الحياة الرقمي الذي يشمل الاقتصاد الرقمي، المجتمع الرقمي، والحكومة الرقمية أو اللاورقية. وبالتالي أصبح لدينا اليوم مواطن ومقيم منسجم مع هذا الوضع وقادر على التعامل معه لتحقيق أفضل مستوى من الكفاءة والفاعلية. عندما نقول أننا اليوم مجتمع رقمي فنستند إلى أرقام تشير أن نسبة استخدام الإنترنت في دبي تقارب 100%، حيث يستخدم سكان دبي اليوم منصات وقنوات الرقمية للشراء والتواصل للحصول على خدمات سواء كانت في الترفيه، التعلم، العمل وغيرها من الخدمات اللي موجودة في المدينة. في المتوسط العام على آخر الدراسات اللي شفناها يقضي الناس في دبي ما يقارب 8 ساعات من يومهم في البيئة الرقمية. في هذا الوضع من البديهي أن يأتي أو من يأتي لدبي أو يزورها يمكن يجد فارق بين المعتاد عليه وما هو موجود في دبي بنفسها. لكن بمرور الوقت يتكيف الناس على هذه الأوضاع وتزداد قدرتهم على التعامل مع الواقع الرقمي، وشيئا فشيئا يصبح أسلوب حياة. هذا أحد الأسباب من أسباب الإعجاب الناس بدبي وتعلقهم بها. ونحن الصراحة جدا فخورين أن نكون داعمين للثقافة الرقمية بالنسبة لكل من يأتي إليها، سواء كان زائر أو مقيم أو مستثمر في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة.
أكيد، شكرا على هالمداخلة. ننتقل لسؤالنا لسعادة الدكتور محمد العسكر حول منصة تم باعتبارها منصة خدمات أبو ظبي الحكومية الموحدة. كيف اليوم تضمن منصة تم أن يلبي التحول الرقمي متطلبات مختلف شرائح وفئات المجتمع في إمارة أبو ظبي؟
مثل ما ذكرنا سابقا، اليوم تم توفر أكثر عن 750 خدمة من أكثر من 30 جهة حكومية وخاصة. فبالتالي فإن مبدأ تصميم منظومة تم لتغطي جميع شرائح المجتمع ما كان بالنسبة لنا رغبة ولا كان متطلب، بس كان قاعدة أساسية. إذا بغينا نلبي احتياجات جميع هذه الخدمات ومستخدمينها، فلازم كان عندنا نتبنى موضوع الانكلوجن من البداية. مستخدمي تم اليوم من مختلف فئات المجتمع: مواطنين، مقيمين، زائرين، رواد أعمال، مؤسسات، كبار مواطنين، أصحاب همم، ومن مختلف الفئات العمرية سواء من ذكور أو إناث. فتم تخدم جميع هذه الفئات عبر قنواتها المختلفة، وتم تصميم بعض القنوات أيضا تغطي متطلبات بعض هذه الشرائح. فاليوم عندنا موقع إلكتروني موحد يخدم جميع هذه الفئات وتم تصميمه ليغطي احتياجات الفئات المختلفة. تطبيق موحد يخدم جميع هذه الفئات. عندنا رقم اتصال موحد 835 يخدم جميع هذه الفئات. عندنا أكثر 20 مركز خدمة موحد يخدم جميع هذه الفئات، وتم التركيز على وجودها حتى إذا في أشخاص ما عندهم قدرات اليوم يروحون يستخدمون القنوات الرقمية، بإمكانهم زيارة المراكز الخدمة بيتم خدمتهم في هذه المراكز، وأيضا تمكينهم من استخدام القنوات الرقمية بحيث لا يحتاجون الرجوع إلى المراكز الخدمة في المستقبل. فأصبحت أكثر من مركز خدمة إلى مركز تعليمي. وأيضا وفرنا خدمات تم متنقلة خصصة لخدمة كبار المواطنين وأصحاب الهمم. فاليوم الشخص من كبار المواطنين وأصحاب الهمم ممكن يطلب الخدمة، موظف السعادة المجتمعية راح يوصل له في المكان اللي يناسبه في البيت أو أي مكان، وراح يخدمه فيه ويؤدي كل واجبه على أتم وجه إن شاء الله. التواصل مع الجمهور وطلباته عن طريق مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي. اليوم عندنا آليات، أي شخص اليوم كان عنده ملاحظات عن طريق التواصل الاجتماعي راح يتم أخذه والعمل فيه. أيضا عندنا وفرنا خاصية التحدث المرئي عن طريق التطبيق والموقع الإلكتروني. فاليوم الشخص اللي يدخل على الموقع وحصل تحديات ممكن يتواصل مرئيا مع الشخص، وهذا الشخص موظف سعادة بالتعليم ممكن يطلب منه الإذن بأنه يقدم عن الخدمة بالنيابة عنه على تطبيق، وفي نفس الوقت يرشده كيف ممكن يقدم هذه الخدمات في المستقبل. عندنا دردشات في المجتمع الجديد والجيل الشباب يحب الدردشات أكثر من التواصل المباشر أو التحدث عن الهاتف والاتصال المرئي، فالدردشة أيضا موجودة. خدماتنا موفرة طوال أيام الأسبوع باللغتين العربية والإنجليزية. فبالتالي نحن نلاحظ أن كثرة القنوات الرقمية وكثرة القنوات الخدمية المختلفة تم تصميمها لأنها كل فئة من الجمهور لها احتياجاتها الخاصة. فاليوم عندما نتحدث عن مشوار رحلة تصميم خدمة المتعاملين عندنا في تم، لازم فئات الجمهور كلها تكون موجودة معنا. فهناك كان العديد من ورش العصف الذهني التي يتم العمل فيها بشكل مستمر، استطلاعات الرأي الخاصة بآراء الجمهور، ملاحظات الجمهور اللي تصلنا من القنوات المختلفة. عندنا بحيرة بيانات فيها معلومات مهولة جدا عن المتعاملين تجربتهم وفي التحديات اللي يواجهونها وكيف نحن ممكن نأخذها هاي في إعادة صياغة الخدمات وتحسينها. هناك الكثير من المبادرات اللي تحفز على الجمهور على تقديم آراء كمبادرات صائد الثغرات الرقمي. وأيضا حتى نحن اليوم قبل ما نطلق أي نسخة جديدة عندنا برنامج نسميه برنامج تم بيتا اللي يوفر نسخة تجريبية للمتعاملين من مختلف الشرائح أن يجربون التطبيق أو الموقع الإلكتروني أو الخدمة قبل ما تطلع للبيئة الحية وإطلاقها للجمهور كامل. في فترة قبل 3 أشهر أطلقنا البيتا بروجرام. 3 أشهر تم البيتا بروجرام، خدنا آراء الجمهور. أكثر من 6000 شخص شارك في البيتا بروجرام اللي ساهم اليوم في إطلاق اليوم الجيل الثاني لمنظومة تم في أكتوبر من هذا العام. فمثل ما ذكرنا اليوم عجلة التحسين دائما مستمرة في مجال الخدمات وفي مجال التحول الرقمي، ونهجنا دائما راح يتركز على تجربة المتعامل وإشراك المتعامل في تصميم تجربته وأخذ جميع الملاحظات اللي توصلنا من جميع القنوات المختلفة من شركائنا الاستراتيجيين من المتعاملين ومن الجهات الحكومية. وهذا بشكل عام ملخص كيف نحن قدرنا اليوم نتأكد من تلبية وشمولية قنوات تم والاستجابة للاحتياجات الفريدة لجميع القطاعات في إمارة أبو ظبي.
تسلم سعادتك على هاي المداخلة الطيبة وواضحة الجهود المبذولة للوصول أو توفير القنوات لجميع الفئات بناء على متطلباتهم. ننتقل لأستاذ بدر هبيس فيما يخص مجموعة بيئة. كيف اليوم توازن مجموعة بيئة بين العناصر الرئيسية اللي مركزة عليها اللي هي الرقمنة والاستدامة والإنسان. فاليوم كيف بيئة أو مجموعة بيئة تأخذ هذا في عين الاعتبار وتنظر له من مشهد الاستدامة الرقمي. تفضل أستاذ.
شكرا. وطالما كان الإنسان والارتقاء بمستوى جودة حياة محور اهتمام مجموعة بيئة في مختلف الشركات والخدمات التابعة لها والحلول الرقمية المستدامة التي تقدمها بهدف الارتقاء بمستوى جودة حياة المجتمعات التي تخدمها. على سبيل المثال أطلقت بيئة تنظيف تابعة للمجموعة نظام رؤية المدينة الذي يعتمد على الذكاء الاصطناعي في خطوة نوعية نحو الارتقاء بنظافة المدينة والشوارع. يشكل هذا النظام ابتكارا نوعيا على صعيد الاستدامة ودعم منظومة إدارة النفايات وإدارة الممتلكات والأصول بطريقة ذكية تساهم في تسهيل عمليات النظافة وتوفير الوقت والجهد والمال. كما يعد هذا النموذج الرقمي إضافة نوعية لجهود مجموعة بيئة الرامية لتعزيز الاستدامة والارتقاء بمستوى جودة حياة الأفراد في المجتمع. واستكمال المنظومة وتطويرها تعمل مجموعة بيئة على إدارة النفايات عبر تكنولوجيا الذكاء الصناعي بهدف تعزيز مستوى جودة حياة المجتمع، تحويل الشارقة إلى مدينة ذكية، حيث أطلقنا قبل عام مرفق إعادة تدوير النفايات التجارية والصناعية الذي يستخدم الروبوت ضمن أعماله، وهو الأول من نوعه بالمنطقة، الذي يستخدم الذكاء الاصطناعي للتعرف آلياً على النفايات ومن ثم فرزها وفقاً لأنواعها. إلى ذلك تدعم مجموعة بيئة جهود تمكين المدن الذكية عبر نظم النقل الذكي للاستفادة من الذكاء الاصطناعي وترسيخ الاقتصاد الدائري والذكي. خلال عام 2022 أعلنت المجموعة عن تدشين مركز بيانات بإمارة الشارقة بالتعاون مع خزنة داتا سنتر، المزود الأكبر لمراكز البيانات التجارية في الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. ويتميز المركز الجديد بأنه بيكون أكبر مركز بيانات في الشارقة من الفئة الثالثة. المركز يهدف لتعزيز البنية التحتية الرقمية بالإمارة في ظل التحول السريع لمراكز البيانات إلى ركيزة أساسية للمدن الذكية، ومن ثم يضمن استمرارية الأعمال، إنجاز العمليات الرئيسية، التحكم في البيانات وحفظها. وبالانتقال إلى جانب آخر، فالإنسان محور اهتمام مجموعة بيئة، حيث أطلقنا مطلع العام الجاري السوارة الذكية، وتم توزيع على عمالة المجموعة، وتتميز بأنها تضمن الساعة الذكية سلامة العمالة وأداء أعمالهم وفقا للجودة المطلوبة خلال الظروف الصعبة. تراقب الساعة مؤشرات الحيوية خلال الظروف الجوية الصعبة، مع توجيه إلى المناطق الأكثر حاجة. كما تعزز الأسوار الجديدة جودة خدماتنا، مما يضيف إلى مستوى جودة حياة الموظفين. وفي الختام يبقى هدف مجموعة بيئة الأساسي هو الارتقاء بمستوى جودة حياة الإنسان عبر محوري الاستدامة والاستفادة من التحول الرقمي من أجل غد أفضل. شكرا.
تشكر أستاذ بيس على مشاركتك لنا هاي المعلومات. الأمثلة اللي ذكرتها خير دليل على المراحل اللي وصلتوا لها اليوم. نهاية وقبل ما نختم كان هذا سؤالنا الأخير، ونشكر سعادتكم على الالتزام بالوقت وهاي المعلومات المفيدة اللي وفرتوا لنا إياها. أختم هاي الجلسة بالشكر الجزيل لضيوف الكرام، سعادة مطر الحميري، سعادة محمد العسكر، وكذلك الأستاذ بدر هبيس. شاكرين للحضور وتواجدهم أيضا معنا. تفضل أخ عمار.
شكرا جزيلا لك أختي نهى ولضيوفك الكرام. الآن اسمحوا لي نستعرض معاكم أخواني خواتي حضورنا الكريم، نستعرض التجارب الناجحة من القطاع الخاص في دولة الإمارات التي تعمل على منصات وخدمات توفر مستقبل رقمي أكثر استدامة، في جلسة بعنوان فرص الاستدامة التكنولوجيا الناشئة لأداء مؤسسي أفضل. يشارك فيها كل من رنا حاجي من مؤسسة شركة The Surplus، كذلك معنا فيفك ترايباثي المؤسس والرئيس التنفيذي لشركة أوليف جايا، وعبد شاور المؤسس والرئيس التنفيذي لشركة أوسكار. وراح تحاورهم الأخت ندى المهيري من مكتب التطوير الحكومي والمستقبل. تفضل يا أختي ندى، حياك الله.
مشكورة يا عمار. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the session today entitled Leveraging Sustainability for Better Operational Technology. With you is Nader Mheri from Government Development and the Future Office. As governments transition to a greener digital footprint, we see tech companies integrating sustainability not just as an added feature, but a core element of their business model. This session aims to shed light on unique tech companies based in the UAE that champion sustainability. It will showcase how new age platforms and services are making a shift towards a more sustainable digital future. On today's panel, we will be hearing from 3 UAE-based startups who are pioneering sustainability in the digital realm. Rana Haji Rasooli is the founder of The Surplus, the world's first B2B platform that allows businesses to share excess resources. Rana is equipped with 12 plus years industry experience spanning marine conservation, litigation, and petrochemical manufacturing. Vivek Tripathi is co-founder and CEO of Olive K, a leading sustainability as a service platform in the MENA and India regions. providing cutting-edge solutions that allow both government and the private entities to reduce their carbon footprint and create a more sustainable future. Vivek is a visionary leader with 17 years of experience in the energy sector. Last but not least, we have Abd Shawar, co-founder and CEO of Oscar, the MENA's first automated sustainable procurement platform that mitigates supply chain risks and aligns with national vision and net zero commitment. Abd has 8 years of experience as sustainability, environment, and waste specialist in the GCC with a focus on UAE and KSA. Thank you so much for joining our session today. The first question I'd like to ask Rana. Rana, tell us more on why surplus exists today and how does it help bring government and businesses closer together?
Thank you so much, Nada, and distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. So I'm the founder of the surplus, and essentially the opportunity that we saw was the $788 billion problem that exists of companies producing waste and excess inventory. So this includes things like extra stock and orders, food that's going to the markets, or even and experts transition. So we saw an opportunity practice, which is about to the GCC and join UAE's mission to engage the private sector in sustainability practices as a first mover in the region. So the opportunity is not only for governments and businesses to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, but reduce their costs and increase their profits as well. So the way we work is essentially with free zones in the UAE and in the UK as well to provide our platform as a service to their companies that are registered there. That's a way for governments to offer digital sustainability services for their portfolio companies and help these companies become more sustainable by exchanging their waste streams while also bringing the kind of local community together for better sustainable practices.
Thank you so much, Rana. My next question is for you, Vivek. How does Olive Gaia aid businesses and governments in achieving net zero? I believe you're muted, Vivek.
Yeah. Thank you, Nada, for the question. So yeah, here I start with, to our pleasure, the very first few clients that Olive Gaia had were from the Dubai governments. And this shows that UAE leadership's vision as the country moved towards COP28 and its net zero commitment. Over the past 2 years, Olive Gaia has played a pivotal role in supporting not only local and regional businesses, but also governments and government entities in their journey towards net zero emissions. We did so through a range of services, including carbon footprint assessment, inventory analysis, developing emissions projections, customized net zero strategies, carbon offsetting, and monitoring and reporting as per global standards. To name a few, we have been working with Investment Corporation of Dubai, with Dubai Future Foundation, in helping them assess the whole carbon footprint across their business value chain, helping them set up their net zero strategy and offsetting for carbon neutrality. We just don't stop there on single entities or organizations or government entity as such, but we are proud to have recently concluded a net zero project for an entire city of Navi Mumbai in India, having a population of 3 million to go towards net zero. From GHG inventory across residential, commercial, industrial, transport, and waste sectors to target setting and decarbonization pathways development in line with sovereign and state level policies. We worked with the local municipality to successfully deliver such a critical project. However, to our pleasure and surprise, this won't be our unique case, as some regional authorities from the GCC have recently approached us for a similar project. Olive Gaia so far proudly helped businesses and government entities map and identify decarbonization strategies to mitigate total GHG emission of close to 4.9 million tons. We have also helped offset 75,000 tons equivalent of GHG emissions, either through certified avoidance or removal projects. Setting up net zero targets, if we talk, haven't always been very easy for most of the entities because of the vast amount of data and stakeholder considerations required to be taken care of. That's why we believe that our product Zero is going to further simplify, streamline, and ultimately accelerate the net zero journey of government entities in the UAE. With our Zero tool, we are targeting to serve close to 12,000 large, small, medium, and large scale and medium scale businesses and government entities in the GCC and India region. This collectively is going to represent roughly 136 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions. With our innovative product, we shall help these organizations scientifically measure, reduce, offset, and report their emissions and achieve net zero status. Thank you.
You guys are doing a lot to reach net zero, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivek. My next question is to you, Oscar. So tell me more, who is Oscar, and how are you pioneering sustainability procurement in the MENA region?
Perfect. Thanks, Nada. First of all, assalamu alaikum jami'an. Second, I like always being called Oscar, even though I'm not. Hopefully, though, Oscar is the newest member of your procurement team, because I suppose Oscar is our sustainable procurement platform that integrates directly into your existing ERP to help you and your teams assess suppliers for sustainability-related risks. So we collect data across topics such as climate change and environment, worker welfare, quality non-discrimination, health and safety, governance, innovation, among others. In terms of pioneering in the MENA region, strictly speaking, sustainable procurement is not really a new concept. It's actually been practiced for decades elsewhere. But the problem is that the normal approach is not one that is built for the MENA region. It's very Eurocentric. So our main accomplishment really is developing a system that fits in with the local culture and business sensitivities here in the UAE and the wider region. So some of the issues that we've noted include the fact that actually a lot of clients here are very interested in implementing sustainable procurement. They understand the benefits, but a lot of these international solutions can't deliver the results that they need because they rely on third-party or publicly available data, which is not really an option here. So Oscar collects data directly from suppliers. Most local suppliers as well, they're not super well educated in this space. They don't really have an understanding of what's required, and they worry about scoring poorly, which is why we've simplified and localized these best-in-class international standards to ensure that we're communicating this effectively to suppliers. And we also operate under a no supplier left behind policy, which means that we know that a lot of these suppliers won't do well on their first assessment, which is why we provide them with all the information that we can to educate them and really improve their performance for the next time. And then finally, most platforms don't understand that in the region where this is something new, you have to incentivize your suppliers to provide these responses. So our approach is to integrate into the existing procurement process. So at the invitation to bid stage, thus we ensure that we're collecting data when the supplier is most willing to provide it and not just ambushing them at random times. And I suppose just for the record, I'm not Oscar. Oscar is our platform that stands for Operational Supply Chain Assessment and Reporting.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your input. Back to Rana. Rana, do let me know, how can digital platforms like Surplus be seamlessly integrated into overarching sustainability goals and strategies of governments?
Thank you so much for that question, Neda. And to be honest, I think that's a really important question because there's a huge amount of opportunity for the government and private sector to work together for this, because implementing digital technologies at the core of processes doesn't actually need to be so complicated. We've worked with some free zones at the moment, and we can see how these processes can align with existing frameworks, such as, annual company renewal and putting a sustainability surcharge in their trade license fee, for example. And there's a lot of benefits that can be seen by this. One of them is financial. So it allows an incentive for companies to start dematerializing, as in making money from the extra stuff that they have lying around already, especially for the SMEs. It becomes a lot more straightforward when the mandate is coming from the government and they feel a lot more motivated, I suppose, to become more sustainable. And it also helps them kind of understand what is going on from a material flow analysis perspective. So it might be able to give governments an insight in terms of what materials are available within certain industrial precincts or free zones, what's actually an opportunity and where the challenges for implementing circular economy, for example. And of course, there's the financial case as well. It can drive new revenue streams that can have an increased allocation for a sustainability budget. But I think ultimately the digital platforms allows for a very simple integration that allows for a really straightforward view of what sustainability means, especially for the SMEs. They make up more than 90% of the global economy, and as well as the UAE, it's a very large portion as well. So from a climate perspective, it means that it can helpfully push along a lot of the SMEs that are contributing to greenhouse gas emissions by reducing them, and also seeing that, look, there is a benefit. They can reduce their operating costs, they can increase profits, and of course, they can find more means to innovate. And more significantly, from a regulatory perspective, they're able to gain clarity from the local government, because this means they have also a digital means to communicate with the government locally in terms of what they can and cannot do, what they can actually trade in terms of waste, let's say, or if they can co-occupy warehouse space. So I feel that there is a lot of opportunity for this kind of digital platform to usher in a new means of communication and community building for both parties.
Thank you so much, Rana. It's really amazing to see how such a platform can bring SMEs and governments together. Thank you. My next question would be to you, Vivek. What are 3 advices for governments to achieve net zero? I believe you're muted.
Sorry for this. Right. So great question there. So starting with what we believe is that if you can't manage what you can't measure, and that's where the element of diagnostics comes in. GHG emissions are the biggest challenge to humanity and businesses if we talk today. Like any other problem, starts with identifying the root cause and conducting a sort of a diagnostics. Similarly, initiating a journey towards net zero always begins with the meticulous greenhouse gas baseline assessment. This involves identifying sources of emission across business value chain, conducting a thorough diagnosis of your carbon footprint, and gaining a deep understanding of your current environmental positioning. Moving forward, it's essential basically to develop a science-based decarbonization approach grounded in robust and reliable data. The strategy should not only serve as a roadmap for reducing emissions, but as Rana just mentioned, it also should act as a tool to identify potential cost-saving opportunities with energy efficiency and demand-side optimization. Leadership in sustainability often involves taking bold initiatives. Government entities in the UAE are encouraged to aim for a leadership position in line with the UAE leadership vision, recognizing that the benefits far outweighs the pitfalls. Embrace a fearless approach to instigate change, leveraging technology to optimize processes and enhance efficiency. We are there to keep supporting government entities alongside private businesses in this journey towards bespoke consulting, and our products like Zero and API helping UAE position itself on sustainability leadership as such. Olive Gaia actually offers a range of innovative solutions, from APIs for e-commerce and automated carbon management and accounting platform called Zero. Now, with the help of Zero, this is a SaaS platform developed for government entities and businesses of all sizes to basically first start with assessing their emission baseline, identifying decarbonization pathways, offsetting the residual emissions, and report their net zero action to international standards such as SBTi, CDP, and TCFD. The platform actually automates the complete and tedious data collection process within the multiple entities in the business, and helps build a custom reduction plans, review multiple decarbonization targets, dynamically monitor the net zero pathways, and provide a marketplace to identify offset projects and generate custom climate action reports. On top of that, the platform Zero by Olive Gaia actually reduces the resource and time requirement to an extent of 80%. So that's precisely how we are aiming to help all the government and the businesses entities out there in the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Seems like it's a holistic approach towards net zero.
Yeah, thanks.
My next question is to you, Oscar. Based on your lessons learned, what are the do's and don'ts for government entities aiming to achieve sustainable procurement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I suppose we'll do positive, negative, positive. So first, in terms of do's, it's definitely paramount that you engage directly with your suppliers. They are your partners in this. You need to work together to set these targets, improve performance, and identify opportunities. Really, working together with them is the easiest way for you to, first of all, understand where they currently are, where the weaknesses are, where you need to put your focus. It's also very critical that you do not abandon suppliers that score poorly. Like, we have an understanding that suppliers in the region will not have a lot of this documentation in place, or will not have a lot of these processes in place. But really, especially when it comes to the government side of things, the UAE government really leads the way with a lot of this stuff. So it's absolutely paramount that these suppliers are educated and trained rather than shunned. In terms of a don't, definitely you need to not see this as a cost. You have to see this as a necessary investment. So using digital solutions can, first of all, help drive down the cost of doing this by reducing manpower in general. But on average as well, when you're looking at something like sustainable procurement, employing just these simple tactics can help you reduce your overall procurement costs by 9 to 16% after just 1 year. So it may seem like you're paying for an extra, a nice to have, but really this is a method to reduce your costs. This is a method to get an understanding of what's across your supply chain and really see those risks before they become a problem. In terms of another do, for sure, you have to work with a digital partner that is flexible around your requirements. There are a lot of international entities out there that have been doing this for a while, but the thing is that they come very rigid, right? They come with the excuse of, this is how we do it in Europe, we've been doing it for a long time. The UAE is not Europe. The UAE is a very different place, very different requirements, targets, culture. There's, I suppose, completely different timelines as well. So there's much more accelerated timelines here, for example, whereas you can take about 6 months to do this in Europe. So definitely work with someone that has an understanding of your requirements, your supplier's requirements, and has that understanding overall. And I suppose finally, just take into account the amount of impact that you can have by just implementing this across your supply chain, which is really where most of your emissions, like Vivek mentioned, is really are.
Thank you so much, Ab. I think we should start investing in procurement processes. That's the takeaway, I believe. Rana, do tell me what tangible sustainability and operational improvements do businesses gain from being part of a digital transformation?
Thank you, Nada. I think honestly for the SMEs, it's always most surprising because they think it's, climate resilience is not something that's, very relevant to them. They don't really feel the effects of climate. We're in a relatively secure business environment here in the UAE. So I think their organizational psychology, it doesn't really allow for it. And there's a lot of awareness that we have to work on. But from our perspective, we can really break it down into kind of 2 or 3 categories. The first one is financial. So the first thing that we see is that they're much more committed to sustainability once they understand how linked it is with their operations. So, transforming into sustainability, through a really simple digital app starts a kind of domino effect internally when they're looking at their own processes. So if they see another company is, posting up some, surplus inventory and it's nearby them, they wouldn't have considered sourcing this because they have to meet certain, let's say, minimum order requirements, which I'm sure Abid will know about from their procurement team to import from abroad. But then they see, well, this is available locally. Perhaps we can try and innovate a new product line for it. So this was an example from one of our member companies. They reduced 90% of their emissions and their costs associated with one specific product line. And that really made them understand that, okay, so sustainability also means convenience. It means reducing costs. It means higher profit margins for us. And it also means getting clarification in terms of, what is waste and what is not waste, because that's always a very big question for the private sector SMEs here, which is, well, we've got this, but waste management collects it. It's not hazardous. Can we actually exchange it for a more circular economy? So these are the types of operational efficiencies that we're seeing, is that they're finding, less manpower, to kind of do tedious tasks. They're finding more efficient ways of sourcing things. Their lead times are reducing. They're finding more opportunities to collaborate with very unlikely organizations locally. So again, think of kind of a chemicals manufacturer and a fashion manufacturer who would have never worked together before. These are the types of opportunities that we're seeing that are becoming more prevalent within the local economy. And of course, from a climate perspective, when they're reinforcing their sustainability commitments and they're, meeting the UN SDGs through these synergies, and they're able to produce reports, they're able to get more accreditations that are quite important, such as EcoVadis or ISO certification, which they wouldn't have been able to get before. So of course that reinforces their kind of, their brand, gives them a competitive advantage, and also gives them something to be quite proud about as well. But of course the key, I will always come back to it, is making that financial case extremely clear for the businesses from the outset, so they feel they're able to participate and they're not overwhelmed with this kind of, net zero bubble that's often very complicated for smaller organizations. So that simplification is really important in providing any digital tool, like my colleagues Vivek and Abid are also quite well versed in, is making sure that it's accessible for everybody so the whole company is able to participate in it.
It's really great to see that you're changing the perception around sustainability and honestly creating a community on your platform. Like you said, you wouldn't have thought two, different industries collaborating together. So that's great. My last question would be to you, Vivek. What is Olive Gaia's services and solutions, and what is sustainability as a service? Can you unmute, please?
So yeah, so thanks for this question. So basically, to start with, I'll just set a little context here. With all of us listening a lot about COP28 now, with all the fuss around that, but it's just 7 days away. Where the biggest agenda is going to be, where governments would be taking a stock take of how we are progressing towards the biggest target in front of all of us, which is Paris Agreement's 2030 target, getting alignment to 1.5 degree temperature rise, or so to say 45% of overall greenhouse gas emission cuts within the next 7 years. With that in mind, the businesses in the UAE, the government entities in the UAE, are looking at NDC targets, decarbonization, and net zero as a very paramount sort of a business requirement as such. Government at the highest level is actually engaging with different entities, ensuring their alignment towards countries' target of 2050 goal of net zero, but more eminently the short-term target of achieving that by 2030. Now, Olive Gaia is a Dubai-based company which is specializing in providing comprehensive sustainability services and solutions to businesses and governments with a focus on decarbonization and net zero. Our approach revolves around a very innovative concept of sustainability as a service, which actually entails everything what you need tailored to your requirements. So whether you are into a cement manufacturing or a petrochemical complex or an oil gas company, or you are an e-commerce player, we have a solution which can very tailor into your business requirements as such. Why we do it and how we do it, basically, this is where we have API solutions by which any e-commerce player who's offering either a product or a service to their end consumers can basically automate the complete carbon footprint of the product or the last mile delivery that they might be doing there. With the carbon management accounting platform Zero, this is where we bring in the whole expertise of developing the whole net zero roadmap, starting from the baselining until the reporting is done through this automated platform as such. Zero basically completely automates the whole data ingestion capability of the business. As while we were doing a lot of consulting assignments on developing net zero roadmaps for government entities and the businesses here, the biggest challenge comes in providing the sort of a credible data source so that the whole JG estimation can be done in a scientific way. And that's where Zero has capabilities by which through APIs, we can fetch all the data from the enterprise, which is required for the greenhouse gas emissions. Or if the business needs are met by just providing some data in an Excel format or any unstructured data format, it could be invoices, it could be POs, contracts, whatever. We have got a powerful AI engine which runs through and basically extracts the required information from the data provided into the platform. Once that gets done is where we move on and create the whole emission projections, looking at the whole business parameters, and based on that, do the complete projections and identifying a very specific decarbonization lever, which is mapping with the set of emission the business has. Basically, this all gets done. At the same time, we provide a marginal abatement cost curves so that the business knows very clearly if they are going to implement such a decarbonization initiative, what are the costs involved in implementing all of this. With this, we help them prepare the complete net zero roadmap and eventually help them report it to various standards like CDP or TCFD, as I earlier mentioned.
Thank you so much, Vivek. And by that, we have concluded our session. Thank you so much for pioneering sustainability, being UAE startups, and encouraging governments towards net zero. Back to you, Ammar.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Neda, thank you for your distinguished panelist. And now اسمحوا لي نستكمل جلستنا القادمة بعنوان المهارات الرقمية الخضراء، تمهيد الطريق لمستقبل أكثر استدامة، اللي راح يشارك فيها معنا بوجا هاملتون، المدير التنفيذي للشراكات في أبوليتيكال، كذلك الدكتور سامسورين ولش، أستاذ مشارك في مركز الاقتصاد الدائري بكلية إدج للأعمال بجامعة كامبريدج، وتحاورهم زميلتي الأخت ريم النعيمي، مدير تحقيق الاستراتيجية في مكتب التطوير الحكومي المستقبل. تفضل يا أختي ريم. ريم أنت ميوتد.
السلام عليكم. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome all to this lovely session with us. As my colleague Ammar mentioned, my name is Reema Naimi and I'm part of the Government Development and the Future Office. We are currently going to start the session on the topic of the rise of green digital skills, paving the way for a more sustainable future. Now, just talking a bit about the session, we are now in an accelerating shift towards an environmentally sustainable and climate-friendly world, which is why it is critical for us to focus on this topic. And we're hoping that this session will shed the light on the importance of equipping individuals, especially public servants, with the necessary green skills to address climate issues and build a sustainable future. Now, with us today, we have two very distinguished panelists or speakers. We have with us Dr. Samsurin. Dr. Samsurin teaches and researches at the University of Cambridge, Judge Business School, and Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership on how technology innovation can drive sustainability, circular economy, and the green transition. He is also the co-founder and chief operating officer of HiveGeo, a startup based in the UAE, leveraging biotechnology for carbon removal and sustainable agriculture. We also have with us Pooja, who is the Chief Partnership Officer of Apolitical, an online network and learning platform used by 200,000 public servants from 160 countries to gain new skills and find and share best practices in critical areas such as AI and climate change. Pooja is also has a wealth of experience in public and private sectors, having co-founded her first business at 25 and subsequently co-founded and run several mission-driven organizations. She has been recognized for her work as a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. Now, we have just some questions that I'd like to address to both of the panelists. I'll start off with Pooja. This topic is about, green digital skills, but I think as an individual, we always first wonder the fundamentals. What are green skills to begin with? What are digital skills? And so what are green digital skills, Are they really necessary or are they a luxury for government work?
Thank you, Reem. First of all, it's an honor to be here. So thank you for inviting me to join this panel with Samsurin. This is such an important and timely conversation, given that COP is just around the corner, almost a week away. So hopefully everyone on the call understands green skills, which refers to the knowledge and competencies to plan for and create a sustainable low-carbon economy. Sadly, the need for them in global governments is huge. We did recently a global government green skills surveys, and we found that 69% of public servants says that climate change is already impacting their work, and yet only 64% of them have never had any sort of training on climate, which I find mind-boggling because these are key individuals who are needed to drive their countries into the green transition for their economies. It's not just in government, by the way. There's an interesting stat in the UK which says that an estimated 3.2 million workers in the UK will need to increase their skill level or retrain to meet the government's commitment to decarbonize the economy in 2050. All this to say, green skills is huge in both public and private sectors. A big part of that missing skill set is digital, and digital means not just being comfortable using, but also deploying digital tools, including things like AI and climate tech. It also means being confident to analyze data, which can help strengthen decision-making and performance. So combine the two, and the green digital skills then refer to the knowledge, competencies, and skills required to use data, digital, and AI tools to create a sustainable low-carbon economy. For the second part of your question, Reem, when email arrived, it was the same question: is this a luxury or a necessity? And I don't think anybody asked that question anymore. The two forces that are transforming our society this decade are climate and digital. Climate being the emergency of our time, and AI, for example, just one example, is one of the fastest adopted technology within government. Hence, I think in our search for solutions for climate mitigation, digital is going to play a big role. Hence, in my view, it's no longer a nice to have, it is a necessity. Thanks, Reem.
Thank you so much, Pooja. So now we're going to go to Samsern. Of course, you've done so much work when it comes to, digital work, when it comes to the environment. And given your area of expertise with Cambridge, with your startup, what are the current green skills gaps in government, and what should the government do about it?
Well, thank you, Reem. Assalamu alaikum, and nice to be here with all of you and sharing the stage as well with Pooja. So Pooja said quite nicely already a good definition of what we mean by green digital skills. I might add another statistic for, of course, every government is different. For the UK, there was a recent study that showed in terms of digital transformation skills, the civil sector over here has only half the amount of skills in terms of digital transformation compared to the private sector. And this is sometimes an issue that we see in public sector versus private sector skills in terms of adoption of skills in new technologies and new trends that are emerging. I'll speak a bit more generally about what I think, in my view, are the three themes or questions, if you may, in terms of digital green skills that governments should consider embedding into their workforce, into the public sector, to prepare for the modern economy. The three things are, one, as Pooja mentioned already, how digital technologies can accelerate the green transition. That's the first one. The second one is how do we actually use digital technologies responsibly? And the third one is how does this link to policy, of course, which is one of the main roles of the public sector. So let me unpack these very briefly, each one. The first one, again, Pooja already mentioned this, which is how can digital technologies drive or accelerate, I would say, the green transition. So we are currently seeing an explosion of technological developments in the digital sphere, especially in the past few years. So think about AI, think about the internet, of course, but think about ChatGPT and all these things, as everyone knows. Think about IoT and smart cities. And, we used to talk about Industry 4.0. Now we're starting to talk about Industry 5.0 as well as the next wave. And so how can all these systems effectively help us create a new green future, such as renewable energy systems or circular economy or green infrastructure? This is one area of skills. The second one is, of course, there's a lot of opportunities to use technology, but how do we use these technologies responsibly? And I think this is a very critical factor for public sector to understand. When I say responsibly, what do I mean? I mean, how do we use these technologies safely, sustainably, ethically, in ways that are inclusive for the citizens? And so obviously understanding risks such as cybersecurity, data protection, how do we mitigate against these risks? But also think about the energy and resource use of digital technologies. So I don't know, some of you may know that we produce something like 50 million tons of e-waste, electronic waste, on an annual basis. So this is, used devices and used computing equipment and so on. The energy consumption, for example, and water consumption of data centers around the world is massive and significant. So I always say green solutions need to be green by themselves as well. So we need to think about how do we apply these in a green way. And of course, also making sure these systems are accessible and inclusive and for those who should benefit from it, making sure that citizens and communities that should benefit from technologies are able to benefit from these technologies. It's thinking of issues such as bias in AI systems and bias in data. These are critical issues. So those are two. And then the third one is how does this link to the work of policy, of course. And so what is the role of policy? And at the center here at the University of Cambridge Circular Economy Center, we very much advocate that policy regulation has a critical role to play in shaping and accelerating the green digital future that we're trying to create. And so the role of effective regulations and laws, how do we design these? But also the role of effective incentives to promote and catalyze innovation in the right direction, capacity building, such as education, as well as awareness building. But also, in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis. So for all of you in this room, in the session today, how can you use these technologies to just help you do your work much better, much more efficient? How do you use AI systems in ways that, as I mentioned, safe and responsible, but use these to help you do your work better and more efficiently? And there's a lot of research actually that's come up in the past few months about the best way to combine people and technology is to make sure that we train the workforce to use these technologies in effective ways. So I'll say those three things that government should think about in terms of green digital skills. How do we use these effectively? How do we use these responsibly? And how do we use these in link to policy?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Samsaran. I think those are very important key takeaways for any government employee to think about when working with green digital skills and working with policy as well. Now, I'd like to move on to something very quite interesting, which is the Government Climate Campus. Now, I know we have a lot of viewers that may know about it or may not know about it. So Pooja, it would be amazing if you can tell us a bit about the Government Climate Campus and what does it do when it comes to building green digital skills?
Of course. So the Government Climate Campus is something we launched earlier this year. It's very much a collaborative initiative with governments, philanthropic organizations, and subject matter experts. But the aim is to provide government-wide training on climate and nature at scale and at speed. And this, we think, is really key to unlocking climate action in this decade. So how we think about green digital skills, the first is in our design itself. The campus is obviously using technology and our platform to deliver the training, as I mentioned, at scale and at speed. But even the way the learning is delivered is very much designed keeping public servants in mind, sort of their time poor, their work burden, and so on. So the first thing I wanted to say is we tend to combine or use technology in the design itself of the delivery of the campus. The second is because we speak to the same governments for often climate, but also digital training, we're able to, when we speak to senior leaders, bring those insights together and influence the way they think about these solutions as well. So for example, we have something called the Digital Excellence Program that we have several governments participate in. And when we publish results from that or share results from that to the key decision makers, we'll often make sure that there is sort of climate elements in that as well. And similarly, when we share data on the climate pieces, we make sure that there's sort of the digital element solutions piece in it. But I think third, and this is sort of the most important, is really promoting and adopting an intersectional approach to both of these topics. And hence we would have topics, for example, like climate and AI, or using data effectively to drive climate solutions and so on. Similarly, green growth, which really talk about pursuing these two agendas in a synchronous integrated way, rather than seeing it in a very siloed way. The last thing I would say here is just a big thank you to the UAE government. We have a fantastic partnership with Jahiz, the skilling initiative for the Government Climate Campus. And really we see this evolve into something pursuing the green digital skills as well. So I wanted to make sure I thank our beautiful partners at Jahiz.
Thank you so much, Pooja. If we were to think of, Samsaran, if I may ask you this question, if we were to think about the role that upskilling in green digital skills, what impact would it have in the government, whether it's on the employees themselves, on how they, operate, on the work that they do as well overall?
Well, thank you. And I would say all of the above. And it's quite exciting to hear about the work that's been happening over there in collaboration between the government and the private sector and the third sector in terms of upskilling for digital skills, because this is quite a important and valuable way to drive this kind of upskilling. I think I would say that governments should make it a focus and a priority to that upskilling in green digital skills is important. In terms of committing the resources and committing the leadership to say that this is important and critical for what we do as government. And that's important because it sends a message to the workforce as well, the public sector workforce, that these are areas that are opportunities for us to upskill ourselves in terms of career development. So imagine, for example, if you're able to position yourself as an expert in terms of how AI can be used for new energy systems, for renewable energy, for example. I had a good friend of mine a long time ago who used to said to me that whenever there are massive shifts in the world, whether it's new technologies, new transitions, green transition as we're going through today, she gets very excited because that means the playing field is leveled. They're no longer experts anymore. Anyone can be a new expert because everyone is trying to figure out what the new opportunity is and how do we apply these technologies in what we do on an everyday basis. And so it's a huge opportunity for those who work in government to upskill and think about how can I become an expert and advisor to say that, how do we use these technologies to drive a policy forward? You can also think about how you can use these technologies on your day-to-day basis work as well. And this is where I would say, in terms of role, whose role is it, for example, to upskill? The one is a top-down approach in terms of developing programs and collaborations and partnerships, as you're doing over here. But the second aspect as well is everyone's role as well in terms of upskilling yourselves. And think about the amount of opportunities there are out there today to get access to learning content, to get access to information, to collaborate and learn and share knowledge with others around what is green digital technologies. And also there's an immense opportunity to access some of these technologies directly and actually understand and learn how to use them. So anyone, for example, can get onto ChatGPT and try it out and experiment and see how it works. But of course, as I said earlier, doing it in a way that's responsible and safe. And that's an understanding that we need to have. So in terms of, just to summarize, Reem, to your question, what is the opportunity here for green digital skills in government? It's across the board. It's in terms of learning how to use these technologies effectively, in terms of driving policy action towards a green digital future, learning how do we actually apply effective policy to drive the private sector in the economy, to create this green growth in ways that are effective and responsible. And for the individuals as well, in terms of career opportunities, as well as the potential to use these technologies to make your work on a day-to-day basis more effective and more efficient.
Thank you so much, Samsur. And I think you've touched on so many important opportunities or situations where people can really, make the most out of green digital skills. And I don't want to be the devil's advocate over here, but of course, when we talk about opportunities, we cannot neglect that there are challenges as well that can, happen simultaneously. So Pooja, I'd like to just ask you a bit about what are some of the challenges or barriers that public servants from effectively leading, on green digital skills, and how can some digital tools or what are some methods that they can utilize to help them overcome these challenges?
Well, I think you've chosen the wrong person to be the devil's advocate, but I'm going to try my best, given our optimistic approach. So you may have heard the saying about government being a 19th century institution using 20th century tools to solve 21st century problems. And this is such a, it sort of stays in my memory, and I quite often use it because it's a reflection of the key challenges that governments often face. When you tend to ask this question about challenge, especially when it comes to digital, the first answer tends to be it's legacy policies, it's legacy systems, right? But if you dig deeper, there are sort of deeper barriers resulting in this resistance to change, or apparent resistance to change, I should say. The first one is institutional buy-in, and I cannot emphasize the importance of driving a culture, which often comes from the leadership, which talks about pursuing green digital skills as a way of doing things in the future. So that's sort of just one in terms of institutional buy-in. The second one is access to better information. We've got to find a way of changing the fear around technology to more confidence and excitement around technology. There's again, you may have heard this before, somebody mentioned this in one of our workshops yesterday, which said, and the lady said, you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're going to lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI, right? And I think that's again, there's no point of being afraid of technology, it's about how do you deploy it. The third one is around inadequate resources. Now, of course, this is true for some governments more than others, but I will say that pursuing green digital skills can result in significant savings and efficiencies for all governments. So there is sort of an economic case to make for pursuing this, even in environments where there might be restraints on what resources can be deployed towards this. The last I would say is the focus or a strategic focus on skilling and reskilling of government staff. We're hosting an event with the UAE government at COP28 next Sunday, where several governments at different levels, including the UAE, are acknowledging the role that training can play to unlock action and are pledging to make training available on climate and nature. And this is the kind of action we need to really think about capability and skills as a way of driving action.
That's amazing to hear. I'm glad to hear that you are going to be in the UAE this coming week. For anyone that's watching. So good luck with that. I think I'm just very mindful of time, and I think we have maybe one more question that we can squeeze in, which I'll give to Samsarin as well, which is, you know, with everything that Pooja has mentioned and the role of government and the requirement of government buy-in, that is very necessary to get the ball rolling. But with all of these new things that arise, we need to also really look at, you know, the adoption and how do we make people, you know, engaged in such a topic. So other than just adoption, how can we foster a culture that really strives for utilizing green digital skills within the workplace to basically upgrade the work of government?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'll pick up on the point that Pooja mentioned as well about you know, you won't lose your job to AI, you lose a job to someone who is trained to use AI or is able to use AI effectively, and that's something to remember as well when we think about green transition, which is we always advocate to say don't forget those who might get left behind in the transition, and making sure that everyone understands that it's an opportunity for them. And we see this whenever there's new technologies that emerge. You know, we often say that new technologies, do they create jobs or do they destroy jobs? Well, they create jobs at, if you think at sort of a level of the economy or the level of industries or even companies, they create new jobs. But there's always those that may feel like they might get left behind because of this transition, you know? And we see this with the emergence of AI in some sectors where there's some pushback from certain sectors from people. So people want to understand that there is an opportunity for them and see that there is value for them in terms of adopting these new skills, and there's a place for them in this new future to embrace these new technologies. And related to that, I want to pick up on your point on culture. And you know, one of the things that we advocate for is this culture of sustainability leadership and the kind of skills and mindset that we need to have for this green transition to embrace. And what do I mean by this? Well, you know, as we know that sustainability and technology are central pillars of where we're going in terms of the modern economy. And we talked about opportunities and challenges very much just now. One of the big challenges, of course, is that there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of where things are going. And we have a clear direction of where we need to go. 1.5 degrees Celsius, decarbonization, net zero future. We know what we need to achieve. The question is, some of the solutions are very uncertain. We talk about AI and so on. We know there's opportunities, but what does it exactly look like? We need to develop and innovate and figure things out as we go along. There's a lot of complexity in this. And this is where we need leadership. This is why we need sustainability leadership, because if it was all simple and clear, we wouldn't need leadership. We just execute. But when we have these uncertainties and complexities and volatility and so on, this is where we need to drive a culture of leadership in organizations. And so that's, of course, embedding the skills and the knowledge that we need to have, as we talked about, the green skills and the green knowledge that we need in the public sector, but also thinking about how do we encourage an enabling mindset in the public sector, such as being adaptable to change. The world changes so fast and so quickly on a day-to-day basis. I mean, think about what happened last week versus this week and how much has changed in the past few days, especially in the world of AI, for example, for those of you who may know. So the willingness to adapt, the willingness to learn how to learn, to collaborate, to innovate, as Pooja mentioned, institutional buy-in, to question status quo sometimes and ask, are there new and better ways to do things? Also, the willingness to communicate and inspire. I think this is very important when we talk about sustainability leadership. So how do we bring others along with us on the journey? And the most important one, I always say, is the courage and conviction to stay the course and go out into this brand new world and figure out what are the ways that we can use new technologies to drive a green future. So I know we're running short in time, so I can go on about, culture is very important. We always say, there's a saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you may have heard this term, which is you can have the best strategy on paper, but if you don't create the enabling culture and environment to execute on it, your strategy is not going to execute very well.
No, I agree with you so much, Samseren. And I think one lesson learned here from the UAE government we have is that you need to have resilience at the core of everything that you do. And I think for us to adopt new technologies, to adopt new mindsets, we need to have that mentality that says, okay, this is new, it's going to be hard, but it's okay, and we're going to go forward with it, And thank you to both of you, because there have been so many lessons learned from just having this conversation. Some of the few things that I picked up on, and I hope that everyone here can benefit from, or to really think about as a takeaway, or things to think about. Which is, as a public servant, we really need to think about, how can digital technology drive transition to a green government? Samseren, you mentioned how we really need to focus on how to use it responsibly and how to make them accessible and how to think about the interplay between these tools and these digital skills and policy making as well. Pooja, you also mentioned, how it's important to not just promote upskilling in general or upskilling of digital skills, but to really look at the intersection between digital and green skills. And I think those were my key takeaways. I'm sure everyone else has taken so many important things from everything that you mentioned. I'd like to leave the floor to both of you for any last words or any last remarks that you'd like to mention to our audience.
Thank you, Samseren. Well, I think it's just a note of optimism. It's quite unique to see this conversation being pursued on a government forum at this stage, including the private sector as well. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this. And as always, we would be very interested in partnering and supporting any work that comes out of this. So thank you. And Samseren, pleasure to sit with you virtually sit with you on the panel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure is mine as well, Pooja. And I will also be in Dubai for COP28 shortly as well. So very excited to see what happens over there. I'll just say one word: opportunity. It's a great opportunity for government, for individuals, for the public sector. But we need the courage and conviction and resilience, Reem, as you said nicely, to move forward.
Thank you so much, both of you, Pooja and Samseren. It was my pleasure to moderate you, and I really look forward to having you both here in the UAE in a week's time, and hopefully we get to potentially see you all face to face. Thank you all for joining us in this session. I hope this was very insightful for you, and I hope you have left, with so many takeaways and so many things for you to think about and apply in your time in government work or wherever you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Reem, and thank you for your amazing panelists for this interesting session. والآن اسمحوا لنا أن ننتقل إلى آخر جلسات هذا المنتدى، جلسة بعنوان النفايات الرقمية، محورية الاستدامة في التحول الرقمي، اللي راح يشارك فيها المهندس سعيد بالهول، مدير إدارة عمليات الحكومة الرقمية في هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية. أيضا سيشارك فيها ستيوارت فليمنج، مؤسس ومالك شركة انفر سيرف. أيضا أتول بنسال، الرئيس التنفيذي والشريك المؤسس لشركة ليفلت. وراح تحاورهم أختي الإعلامية نوف الكثيري، وهي إعلامية ومذيعة تلفزيونية في شبكة أبو ظبي للإعلام. تفضل أختي نوف.
Thank you, Ammar, for the wonderful introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, we usually keep the best for last. So this is one of the best sessions you're going to hear today, which is a very interesting session, not because I'm the moderator, but because we have an interesting mix of people and industries. We'll be talking about something that lots of people don't think about usually, which is waste. So when we need something, we usually think about how do we buy it? How much does it cost? Where to buy it? Do I really need it? But we don't usually think of how to get rid of it in a sustainable way. Well, these gentlemen here are going to give us some answers. We have both the government and the private sector, and here in our panel, also from the private sector, we have an established 20-year-old company, and on the other hand, we have a 2-year-old startup company. And before diving deep into the conversation, I would ask for the panelists to tell us more about themselves in 30 to 40 seconds, each one of you. We have Engineer Saeed Bilhol, Director of E-Government Operations at Telecommunications and Digital Government Regulatory Authority. Engineer Saeed, what do you like to tell us in 30 to 40 seconds about you, your title, and the session in general?
Thank you, Nof, and thank you for hosting me. I'm Saeed Bilhol, Director of E-Government Operations at the Telecommunication and Digital Government Regulatory Authority. I am obviously responsible on operating a cornerstone of infrastructure for the federal government, which is the federal network. The federal network is a infrastructure that provides integration among the various government entities in terms of their digital services. It also contains a number of digital enablers that help them speed up digitizing their government services. And of course, we don't forget the security, supporting them into securing their services. This is in a nutshell.
Thank you, Engineer. And now Atul Bansal, the CEO and the co-founder of LiveLight. Can you tell us how old your company is and where is it based? But don't tell us too much because we're saving the deep conversation for later.
Sure. Thank you, Nof. And it's my honor to be here in this forum and with the panelists to talk about our passion. I am the founder of LiveLight. We are a young startup changing the way organizations look at the workforce tech through a circular economy business. We are based in Dubai, grown in Dubai, and very proud to be in this country, and looking forward to a very good discussion in the next few minutes.
Thank you, Atul. And last but not least, Stuart Fleming, owner of Enviroverse. What can you tell us about yourself?
There we go. Somebody was muted up. Good afternoon, everybody, and always a pleasure to be on these panels and to look forward to the next half hour of an intriguing subjects. Stuart Fleming, I'm the founder and group CEO of Enviroserve. What you see behind me, I'm sure we'll go through and we'll discuss, and pioneered the electronic waste industry proudly in the UAE. Establishing the company here, and proudly that it's a UAE homegrown company that is now cross-border, Middle East-wise, Middle East Africa, and servicing the needs of electronic waste.
Thank you, Stuart. So everyone here in the panel is Emirati made one way or another. And since everyone is properly introduced, let's start slow, okay? Let's look at the title of the session, Digital Waste, Sustainability at the Core of the Digital Transformation. There is a word that has been repeated twice, which is digital. It is very important to highlight the difference between digital waste and e-waste, because most people usually think of, when we say digital waste, they think of e-waste. But yeah, all e-waste is digital waste. However, not all digital waste is e-waste. Stuart, do you have any intake on that?
Interesting. Yes. It was recently kind of came to light, especially with COP28 coming along and sustainability here, that digital is the new green, and green is the new digital. And in the previous discussion, it was about digital, green and digital. So the two have been combined together. My take on it is that there are all sorts of different types of pollution, and digital and electronic waste can be combined. It can be separated out. And we have to focus on these things. I think globally, we talk about circular economy, but I think we need to change that and make a dynamic shift to a sustainable economy. Because I don't think we'll ever get to circular economy so long as we continue to have fractional economy. Now, circular and economy is business. It's not actually recycling. It's not actually the big circle that's created. Recycling doesn't just start with putting something in a bin, be it plastic, be it digital, in another format. And I think it's a topic that needs clarity. And why that clarity is because I think the mindset has to be engaged in. We have to all have the mindset and the understanding of what digital is, what green is, what recycling is, what e-waste is, and move from there with a clear private and public sector awareness of what we need to do, not just as a country, but as a globe. And that's why, having COP28 just 20 minutes from where we are, personally being in the blue zone to represent e-waste for the UAE, the industry, to talk at UNIDO levels, etc. I'm very proud of that, and that topic that you've discussed or raised is one that's a keynote speech, because we've got to understand digitization, we've got to understand that green is the new digital, and we've got to understand e-waste.
Interesting. Thank you so much, and congratulations on your COP journey at the Blue Zone. I'm so happy to hear that. And we're going to move to the next question that I would like to ask Engineer Saeed. Since you are the only one in this panel who comes from the government sector, except for me, here comes your question. When it comes to disposal for different sectors, oil and gas industry, the medicine, all these different sectors away from the digital industry, the government has created rules and regulations for such waste material. But what about digital waste? Do we have rules and regulations? And if yes, do we have an entity who looks after them?
So from the digital government perspective, let me say, to start first, the digitization goes hand in hand with sustainability, and they are really mutual. They work together. So if you digitize, you go towards sustainability, and if you do sustainability also, you help the businesses. You do more with less. So they're really mutual relationship between them. And when it comes to government, first of all, I'm glad the days of cheap printers are almost over. We don't buy as many cheap printers, and we replace them every year. But if you look at the government entities on the individual level and on the entity level, on the individual level, you have probably each employee will be having a mobile device and a laptop or a desktop. The mobile will be lifespan would be around 3 years, and the laptop would be around 5 years. If you look at these devices, more than 80% of the greenhouse gas emission is not during the use, it is during the manufacturing and the sourcing of the material. So this is where it's more the carbon footprint of these devices. The usage is only less than 20%. So what we do about this, the thing that we can do to serve the sustainability cause is to increase the life of these devices. The more we use them, the better it is. So this is an approach. Whether, as I said, on the laptop or but here comes is a bigger problem is the equipments of the data center on the entity level. Not far ago, you have on the federal level, we have 40 government entities. Each entity of these, they want to digitize their services. So what they do, they build the data center. The data center is filled with compute resources, servers, storages, network devices. And you started to see lots of problems. These entities are not specialized. Their specialty is not managing data centers. This is a really specialized field. Probably they want to modernize their application, their system, but it's not to manage their infrastructure. So you end up with lots of problems. You have a big area data center. These data centers need to be cooled. So that's lots of energy. You have what we call the zombie servers, a server that was bought maybe for a project, very much oversized over the years, less utilized, and then the IT cannot get rid of it because the business still wants it. So what we have done in the TDRA is the entity which is enabling the digitization on the federal level. We have invested in the federal network, And with the federal network, we have infrastructure as a service, where we have a pool of compute storage, and memory resources the entities can use. And we lead lots of best practices to ensure the best utilization of these resources. You know, the data centers are known to be very power hungry. And in fact, I read a study conducted by the International Energy Agency. Tech-related electricity demand are unsustainable. It shows that's unsustainable. And on the same rate of ICT electricity consumption, it is estimated by 2040, ICT energy requirements would become more than 64% of total world-generated energy capacity. So imagine if you have 40 data centers and you are wasting cooling and many servers that you buy, they are underutilized. That's a big carbon footprint. So what we do in the FedNet, we help optimizing the use of these resources. I will tell you examples how we do this. First, we do better shared compute resources that minimize waste. I talked about zombie equipments underutilized. You don't have this. Since the pool is shared, if an entity does not use a resource, the other entity will be utilizing it. Yes. We have also specialized team who always check the ratio among different components of the servers, and they ensure the increase of utilization to the maximum. Power resources, also cooling, we study them always, and we try to keep the power utilization PUE, power utilization efficiency, close to 1, which means it's as efficient as possible. Okay. We also work with our suppliers to extend the device's lifespan as much as possible, probably close to 7 years. All these good practices, help reducing the carbon footprint when it comes to data center and managing.
Interesting. Thank you for the beautiful example that you gave. And you said something in the beginning, digitalization goes hand in hand with sustainability. I think I agree with you 100%. And you also mentioned something interesting about, companies with their laptops and computers that are continuously changing, and that would increase the carbon footprint, which brings us to our next panelist, Atul Bansal from LiveLight. Your business model is very interesting. Produce, distribute, use, dispose. That is usually the cycle of any product. How does your company break that cycle and plays a role in circular economy?
Certainly, thanks, Nov. I think just to build on it, when it comes to typically looking at the tech for the workforce, right? You need the latest devices, servers, smartphones for your employees. We have this mindset, or companies have this mindset of buy, use, and struggle to discard, honestly, right? Struggle to discard is, can I extend the life? Can I do a recycling, or can I just keep it in my IT room? What we change in this whole journey is, rather than buying, using, and discarding, you can simply subscribe, use, and recirculate, right? Which essentially means, and it kind of touches upon the point Engineer Said made earlier, the whole idea is that devices have a long shelf life, right? And to the extent possible, through the power of circular economy and recirculation, we want to delay the e-waste generation, right? Companies should not first spend on buying devices and then struggle to discard. They could simply subscribe to a device. He spoke about infrastructure as a service, which essentially is a shared ecosystem where companies can use the same server infrastructure without buying it. What we are bringing to the market is, in a simpler words, device as a service, right? You can use the device on a service model, use it for as long as you like it, and when you don't need it, you return it so that someone else can use it. And that's what we are changing from a traditional buying, using, and discarding mindset to subscribe, use, and recirculate mindset.
Yes, thank you. I think that's very interesting, especially here in the UAE. I don't believe that there's lots of people adopting that model of business. So tell us, when you started your company, did you face any difficulties when pitching to companies to join your invest in your company or to use your model?
So absolutely, I think there were challenges, there are challenges, but nothing which surprises us. So as a circular economy business, we are very one of the first entrants into this category, bringing this model in our region. Our region, our country is still catching up when it comes to adopting circular economy. So back 2 years ago, when we first started this, I believe there was a lack of even awareness about what is circular economy, right? And while in the Western economies or matured economies, circular economy already has been defined, there are regulations around it. So 2 years ago, we had this challenge of at least communicating to our potential clients, even large or small, that there is a circular economy way of using devices. It is more sustainable. The question was, but what is circular economy? First, help me understand, and then I will see whether it fits into my corporate objectives or not. I think from there on till today, and I think all thanks to the push and the awareness UAE government and the COP28 has done over the last 12-15 months around this topic, we see a lot of interest coming back to us now, with companies actually at least understanding that they have a responsibility towards circular economy, right? Why their tech strategy should change. We spoke about green a lot. Very interestingly, I think the way companies or organizations typically look at green is, let me buy a device, let me use a device, and when it comes to the discarding of device, I will go green, right? I will not throw it away, I will get it recycled. That's when the green comes in towards the end. And what we are saying is, let's move the green from the end to the start, right? Your green should be in the start. Don't even buy the device, right? Let's subscribe to a device. And that's the change which we are seeing now with the I think the whole ecosystem and the way the awareness is being raised about sustainability around devices.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that's very interesting, especially this year it's sustainability year. COP is around the corner. So maybe in the first year it was not, there were more challenges, but since we have sustainability years, I believe the buzzword of circular economy and sustainability and green went higher. So companies now are more into going green and circular economy uses. Thank you, Atul. And now we go to Stuart. From Enviroverse experience, how could governments ensure the sustainable processing of e-waste?
Very interesting question, Noof, as well. Let's think global. Well, let's go global here. We have seen an amazing uptake on the interest in circular or sustainable economies. Countries are looking at e-waste strategically now, and I'm talking about not only the developed world but the developing world, where we are very much suited and experienced. For example, we will be hosting the Ghanaian minister here, the Rwandan minister here. As you know, Enviroserve has a wonderful facility in Rwanda. And what a great example of mindset change from Rwanda, where 25 years ago they banned plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. He introduced, His Excellency, the President introduced a system of every fourth Saturday of the month, everybody in the country was to go out and clean up the streets. And you now have a country that has a mindset change of not throwing garbage away. I'm generally talking about waste rather than just e-waste. And they put together an e-waste facility, the only one really of tremendous value in Central Africa, of which we operate and manage on behalf of the Rwandan government. So a very close relationship with these countries that are coming and saying, what do we do about this? How can we embrace it? From a UAE perspective, the strategy, it is very high on the UAE strategy is digitization and the following electronic waste. The biggest issue is what Saeed mentioned here that I think I quite agree. We talk about the cloud, and whenever somebody says, oh, my information is the cloud, they point upwards. I don't know why, because all that is on flat Earth. and it's all the energy. We go digital, we need more servers. We need more servers, we need more air conditioning. We need more air conditioning, you need more energy. And this is a massive challenge, not only for us, but for the globe. In order to have a sustainable economy, we need to increase the lifespan of our electrical and electronic items. Growing up in the middle of Africa, I remember we had an old fridge that lasted 25 years. Now, we will only get to circular or sustainable economy if we have a product that lasts longer. Then there'll be less e-waste. And I'm fine with that because there's enough in the world as there is. People asking me, how are we going to actually clean up space? All that e-waste up in space. Now, that's also digitization. That's also part of a cleanup process. And who owns that? And all these questions. And these things have to be challenged. They have to be looked at, and a strategy has to be created. To end off, the UAE has a strong strategy. Regulations are coming in. EPR is a major part of that, and we're working closely with the industry and the ministries to make it fair on the OEMs, make it fair on the recyclers and the collectors. So we are ahead, and we're moving forward as a country to implement that and make sure that as a country we tick the box and say, yep, that one's done, strategy done, and we're completed. And we're proud to have, as the UAE, the largest integrated e-waste facility in the Middle East Africa region.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I believe you mentioned something interesting that lots of people don't think about, is when you said it goes up in the cloud. You know, people usually, when they think of like digital waste, they think about the actual hardware, but not the software itself. So for example, I have 1.4 terabyte of photos in my phone. Where does the space actually go? Oh, it takes space, but where is it exactly? You know, and as you
it's
said,
not just on that phone. It's on a server somewhere, and Said alluded to that. And data is a major thing. It's for 18 years we're trying to resolve those 20 phones that are in a drawer at home.
Yes.
And people are scared to get rid of it. So hopefully in Q1 is a service where you will be able to see and witness your data bearing device being shredded, and therefore feeling comfortable and safe that the data is gone, but you've done the right thing and added to sustainability considering
Absolutely.
e-waste.
Absolutely brilliant, Stuart, really. And this actually brings us back also to Engineer Saeed. Engineer Saeed, how do you envision the role of public and private partnerships in e-waste management?
Obviously, public and private partnership are crucial to this formula. If we speak about the digital services, the government now started integrating the services. Well, we did a big part in integrating government services in general among different entities between even on the federal and local level. But now we are extending to integrate these services with the private sector. What does this? What's the impact of this? Obviously, more digitization, which leads to more sustainability. But obviously, digitization, like any other service or a good, it will have a byproduct, which is negative in terms of carbon footprint, increased carbon footprint, and e-waste, in case we did not manage it very well. So we work with companies like EnviroServe to ensure that the digital equipments get disposed in the right way. Especially, for example, you have the handheld devices with batteries. They contain, the batteries are very harmful to the environment, and we should ensure that they don't end up in the landfill. The private sector, as I said, it's a crucial partnership, but also it has to be balanced, because you have also, it's not easy to balance it. Supplier wants to sell more, and the consumer doesn't want to spend less. So, for example, we came across one of the companies. We know the mobile makers who was introducing some software in order to make the mobile device works slower as it ages. So the customer buy a new one, and that's this is not fair. And you have also, if you come to the consumer and you tell him, hey, buy this is fair trade, he doesn't want to pay more. I want to say. So it's really, you have to balance this relationship, and it's not easy. It has to come through awareness, I think, and agreeing on what's the future of this planet that we live on.
Yeah, I think when you said balance the relationship, I think that's brilliant, because as a consumer, usually we think in an economical perspective. But if we do increase, let's say, the awareness of sustainability more and more, as a consumer, I will start choosing something more sustainable rather than save 1 or 2 dirhams. If the mentality changes of the public, let's say,
I wish everybody thinks like you, of course.
Yeah, hopefully maybe how the new generation and their mentality would be towards the environment, I would say. Yes. Being mindful of time, I just have one last question to Stuart and Atul. Stuart, from your experience, what are the most common misconceptions about e-waste recycling?
The misconception of it is an understanding that it doesn't have, it's not hazardous. Batteries, digitization has gone to vehicles now. They're in our vehicles. It's mobile digitization. And just look at a vehicle these days, the size of the screen, all the technology that's in it, and of course that electric vehicle, the EV. And Atul, I think you saw yesterday the tremendous work we've done on securing a solution for EV batteries, not just for the UAE but for the region here at the facility. And that's all batteries. And that misconception is based on, oh, it's only this, it's only a screen, it's some plastic, that's about it. Let's throw it away. And that goes then down to electrical, like it's only an electric toothbrush. Let's throw that away. A small battery, it's not going to make any difference if I throw that battery away. That's the misconception. And the misconception that it's actually quite easy to dispose of your electronic waste to a number of collectors. We're not the only one. There are a number of really good collectors around. So it's not that difficult to dispose compliantly your e-waste to UAE regulations.
Yeah, honestly, Stuart, I never thought about throwing my battery in a sustainable way. So really, thank you for that example. I'm being more mindful about it now. And for Atul, how do you envision the future of device consumption landscape?
From our perspective, as companies think about more sustainable way, right? A very good example we always discuss internally. When we think about sustainability, everyone says, let's replace the plastic water bottles with glass water bottles in the cafeteria, right? Or let's start using a more EV fleet so that our carbon footprint on the road, the fuel consumption goes down. For us, the next level of sustainability mindset is that let's stop buying devices, right? Let's start subscribing because we can recirculate them more. And this is, for me, the future of device consumption, where companies, while they need access to the latest smartphones, laptops, and everything, they should have a conscious decision that, can I get it without buying? Can I move away from ownership and just make sure that I get it? I have a sustainable choice, and then I recirculate it. And that, to me, will accelerate the digital transformation as well, because organizations will be under no pressure to basically stop upgrading their devices every year, because it's not a capex or a financial investment they're making anymore. The transformation will happen much faster. They can keep up with the technology much faster. At the same time, they will have a sustainable choice which they made by not buying a device. And that, to me, is the future of devices in the organizations.
Interesting. Really, it was such an interesting session. And before we wrap the session, I would ask the panelists if you have any other ideas you want to add, any last thoughts at the end of our session.
I think thank you very much for again hosting it. I think that's a good event. Awareness is a key in having people to accept changes. we in the government, for example, we encourage all entities to adopt the cloud, and on the entity level and on the individual level, we encourage them to follow sustainable practices when they use their handheld devices or computers. So awareness is a key to spread the message. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Engineer. It was such a brilliant session having Engineer Saeed, Stewart, and Atul. We talked about circular economy. We talked about managing e-waste from a company that has been living in the UAE for 20 years. We've been having Engineer Saeed and his government TEDRA perspective on sustainability. And as he said in the beginning, digitization go hand in hand with sustainability. Thank you very much for every perspective. And Stuart, I'll be mindful about the batteries from now on. Thank you. And I give the floor back to Ammar. Have an amazing day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to your amazing panelists for this amazing session. وفي الختام اسمحوا لي إخواني وأخواتي أني أشكركم على حضوركم هذا المنتدى، وباسمكم أيضا اسمحوا لي أني أشكر جميع المتحدثين اللي ساهموا وشاركوا في هذا المنتدى وأثروا المحتوى، اللي أتمنى بإذن الله تعالى أنكم استفدتوا من التجارب اللي انعرضت ومن القصص والأفكار اللي تكلمنا عنها اليوم في هذا المنتدى. وأيضا اسمحوا لي أني أشكر سعادة الأخ أطرف شهاب الرئيس التنفيذي لمختبر مئوية الإمارات لقيادته هذا المنتدى، وأيضا فريق هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات والحكومة الرقمية متمثلة في أختي أحلام الفيل وفريقها المتميز لمساهمتهم في إنجاح هذا المنتدى. وأخص بالشكر أختي فاطمة البستكي على إدارتها هذا المنتدى والأجندة المتميزة الحقيقة اللي اليوم شهدناها. وأخيرا شكرا جزيلا لكم جميعا، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.